they're just to collect a check and not necessarily there to actually be a good police officer, to actually protect and serve. And the flip side to that is, we saw this with regards to when cruise ships were recruiting people and hundreds went, thousands went. And it was a lot of people, right? When the economy was reported, yeah, we're great, the economy is great, and unemployment is supposedly low, apparently, maybe, if you look at it, if you tilt the graph to the side, you see it's not going up, it's going down. But look at what's going on now. Because again, this is, the flip side is, what did I just say? This is a high profile, high risk job. This is not necessarily the thing that you look to, right, as a first choice if your primary motivation in your job search is stability. Because you're a police officer, right? Your job just has a certain level of risk that other jobs don't. Granted, these days, you could be working in a fast food chain and still be at risk, or an ice cream parlor or a hairdresser salon and still be at risk of a random bullet just coming through the door, through the window. You could be at home. So is being a police officer that much more risky than being a citizen? You could debate that point. But it's interesting that so many young men apparently had those concerns that they could not get other jobs. And now they decided to subscribe to this one. And who knows, maybe we might get some real hidden gems, young men who would have never thought to be police officers, and then when they join the service, they take to it like a fish in water, and they thrive, and they might become the leaders of the police service of tomorrow. And they might be telling a story how I never wanted to be a police officer, but circumstances led me down this path, and look what happened. Who knows? That could be a story in 40 years. But right now, the economic conditions that is, to some extent, allowing for the police recruitment drive, it's potentially a unintended, somewhat positive consequence of our job market not being that great. But that's not necessarily the kind of positive outcome you're looking for, based on how things are going. And at some point, when will our debt to GDP catch up with our lack of growth? Anyway, so at the very least, we should be getting new officers. How will they be used? When they may be used? Because all of the training and having to do new facilities, having to expand, there's a lot of questions with regards to this. It's being implemented relatively quickly. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but let's move on to the next story. And staying with the police service in general to some extent, the police service, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services Social and Welfare Association, it's a mouthful, right? They are challenging, or they have pushed back, I guess you could say, with regards to the whole FUL changes for the police service, and they are looking to try to maybe ask for certain things to be done in-house. Of course, it came out that the commissioner is looking to have service members, which I believe is not limited to the police service, but to have service members have to go through the same process. They're no longer exempt from the processes that civilians would have to go through in order to renew their private firearms user's license, right? And this it's interesting because on one hand, I actually now thinking about it further, I do think, listen, for the purposes of proper transparency, it might be good that you have to go through the process again. You have a whole set of separate paperwork, right? Rather than just copy and paste, it gives a checks and balances situation because you have to go through the process twice. Of course, the flip side, like I said, will the association care about its members basically having to be double tested, right? And they're looking to try to get some of the requirements apparently done in-house, which I don't know, and I guess that's why I kind of thought, there might be some value to the redundancy, right? The private process as opposed to the internal police process. And if you get your private firearms user's license done internal to the police services resources, then to what extent, how much different is that from the exemption, right? And I guess maybe it's also with regards to reporting. Those who have to oversee the private firearms users license might not necessarily be the ones responsible for police certification. So, I mean, that's all internal to the police service. And I do think, though, that something like this should have been thought out before these measures were put into place, communicated with the association, one would hope as a stakeholder, so it could communicate to the members, so that this would not be a thing that plays out in the press, and it seems as though they're now trying to figure out how many T's they didn't cross and how many I's they didn't dot after they started the ball rolling on this. Meanwhile, of course, let me just get this right. Attorney Nairi Alfonso, she is looking to ask the commissioner to hold off on any sorts of changes to the firearm users license situation. She is a director of the Firearm Training Institute. I believe that's a family-owned business. They are looking at the legality with regards to introducing new fees when there is pre-existing legislation that if you have a FUL before 2004, it will remain valid unless terminated or revoked, which then brings the question, what is the legal justification or authorization for a lot of these new fees to now be tacked on, new renewal fees, because technically previous firearm users license aren't going to be renewed. The issue is not that the government can't make a change, and I do wonder, you know, what is the point of having these grandfathered licenses in? That does seem a little bit unfair, so to say, if current license holders have to pay a certain amount in renewal fees. But that's a question for Parliament because legislation has to pass, and I do believe that's what Nairi Alfonso is looking at. And part of the problem is this whole thing apparently is going to be instituted. I believe it's either sometime in March or April. And because of that, the Attorney Alfonso, she's asking for, hold on, wait, can we hold this off? Because we're going through all of these legal questions and, you know, we don't want this thing to go ahead while it's still being sorted out, the technicalities of it, which I think is understandable. And again, because apparently, the commissioner is getting legal advice. I think on this topic specifically it was reported, and that brings up the question, well, you know, how is it that, again, you didn't cross your T's and dot your I's and speak to stakeholders and go through all of the homework before you instituted this? Right? It's almost like if you're kind of going off half-cocked. This is the second time for the segment, by the way. And only in hindsight, you're like, oh, right, we didn't do this and we didn't do that, and we have to sort all of this out. All right, let's move on to the next story, because, you know, we're not done with the police, not by a long shot, because the promotion situation has controversy, has continued, and now, you know, there are almost 100 officers, 93. They are asking the Police Service Commission to, you know, look into the Commissioner of Police herself with regards to the promotions scandal, I guess you could say. And there are a couple of things in this. First of all, apparently there's a backlog from since 2009, which, to be fair, is not the commissioner's fault. She is more or less 1 year into the job, or just over a year at this point, I think. I could be wrong. Although, again, something like 800 officers, constables were promoted to corporal under her watch, or at one point it was reported at 2,000. At this point, there's so many controversies happening in TNT, I can't remember the details. But there was a backlog on this list, and of course, this is part of the situation where officers who weren't promoted, those are the ones going to the Service Commission, they said, listen, our scores are better than so many people who were promoted. Now, it seems as though some of these promotions might have been a mistake to start off with. So I don't necessarily know to what extent it's the commissioner's fault, except I think in this situation, again, I do wonder if the commissioner, well, I mean, think about it, right? We already have two situations where it seems as though policy was implemented and not everything was done to ensure as reasonable as possible that it was the correct way to do. Now we're talking about just handling internal promotions. And understand that not everybody who is eligible for promotion is guaranteed for promotion. And I think that one of the Defense Force cases, a judge even made that point, right? And that was just about a month or two ago. But think about it. This is not the crime strategy part of the job, right? This is not the how do we get the murderers off the streets and how do we improve training and what policy decisions for crime fighting we need to look at. No. This is basic administration work. And I do believe that the background of the current commissioner is in police administration. I could be wrong. And I get it. I've had criticisms with regards to when she has rated herself as excellent and when she said that the murder rate, they'll get a handle on it by June, and all of these things. And of course, the fact that the detection rate is 13%, that's fine. Those are all technically challenging. But how could I have confidence in leadership of an entity that cannot manage its own internal processes properly? Because not only is there a backlog of promotions, because for some reason the TTPS cannot promote people regularly enough. I don't know, is it that they didn't have billets to be filled, positions to be filled? Well, if that's the case, that's life, that's unfortunate. And in other jurisdictions, like say the American military, depending, if you don't get a promotion, you might get a promotion late, and at some point you will just have to retire because you're never going to get that much further. Like, that's just how it is. You don't have just as many senior superintendents as you have corporals, as you have constables, as you have, et cetera, right? It's a pyramid. It's not a rectangle going straight up with parallel lines. So, but again, we had an issue with leave, and officers not being able to go on leave. Now, former Commissioner Griffith, and he'll come up in just a second, apparently he wanted more officers on the force, and just last week, I lamented with the ASP that the manpower requirements on the police service is stretching the service thin. Hopefully the new recruits could help. We just don't know how soon they could be of practical value. But in the meantime, the management of things like time off and promotions, if those things cannot be done, and it's reached the point where officers have so little confidence in the process, they're going to the Police Service Commission to ask for some sort of rectification of this issue, then why am I going to have confidence that the police service's leadership could deal with the actual difficult problems like the murder rate? Why? And I don't think, to be fair, this is the commissioner's situation alone, right? This is to a great extent something that she met, but at the same time you're in the job, and part of being in the job is trying to, you know, untie the Gordian knots, or if necessary, take a sword like Alexander and slice that thing apart, because we can't just leave the thing as it is and hope that it gets better. No pun intended. For those who know, they know. Right, next story. Speaking about the Police Service Commission, Gary has been, I believe he's looking to, no, he has filed. I'm mixing up my cases. He has filed against the former chairman, Blissy Prasad, right, who apparently is going to be defended by the state, even though it was technically, it was filed in a somewhat private capacity, but I guess because she was operating as an agent of the state in this regard, the state will take on her defense. At the end of the day, I like this, and this does not mean that I 100% support Gary or I 100% don't support Gary. My support or lack of support for Mr. Griffith has nothing to do with me liking this move. And I like this move similar to what I said with regards to the Deputy Chief Secretary, right? Taking to court over the legality of the search of her house over the Audiogate matter. Regardless of whether she's implicated or not, I want more transparency. So I have no problem. I have no problem with this, right? My hope, however, is that it does not just turn into like a witch hunt that is going to put Blissy Prasad as a scapegoat, and it's not going to allow discovery into the wider issues and the wider operations of the Police Service Commission at the time, Because, of course, the merit list and the merit rolls draw, all of that is there. So it's not just the Service Commission, it's also what happened at the President's house. Who was there and what, more importantly, what was said and what was the justification for it. The justification by the Prime Minister has been implied. It's been implied, but he can't speak about it because he's been blocked. All right, fine, fair enough. I don't know if that was the best move by former Commissioner Griffith. And who knows what it is that the real reasons why he blocked the Prime Minister from putting it in Parliament. But as it was pointed out, you could still say publicly, if there's no fear of slander, you could still say publicly. And perhaps now this move, maybe by Mr. Griffith, is to try to get some of the relevant information out into the public, as opposed to allowing it to be framed in Parliament under protection or privileges or what have you. So transparency, yes, I just hope that Mr. Griffith knows exactly what potentially might come out of this. Otherwise, you know, depending on what it is, it may be good for him, it may not. I just want to know the truth. Next story. And this is the one where they were given permission to file. And again, it's incredible to me how there's so much bigger controversies, but this one apparently has like staying power in the press and in the national discussion. And that is with regards to the Integrity Commission's investigation into the Prime Minister's townhouse. Well, a court has decided to give an activist permission to file against the Integrity Commission, I believe, which right now is, I believe, is operating without the chairman. So how is it operating? I don't know. And looking at the decisions of the Integrity Commission, right, to not reopen its investigation. I mean, they've had 3, so, but, and then as well as the declaration with regards to the declaration itself, and the decision to not report, the IC's decision to not report the Prime Minister to the DPP's office. So, all right, I get it. It could be that, listen, there's much to do about nothing here, and this will reveal the fact that there's much to do about nothing here. And that's fine. Again, it goes back to what I said about the previous story, more transparency. Because I did say it, you know, the fact that there were 3 investigations that all cleared the Prime Minister, that's kind of odd. That's kind of odd. And, you know, I don't know if you want to take it at face value. You can't necessarily assume the worst, right? But perhaps we need to know more. And I'm thankful for activist Ravi Balgobin-Maraj for doing this. Because again, more transparency. And right now, one of the few things for now that we could be somewhat confident in is the fact that the courts will seek the public interest, at least right now. But we'll see how this goes. There's always questions with regards to judges and magistrates and how they act. And I've heard some stories, but I'll leave that alone. So, more transparency, good. Hopefully more information about this to put it to bed, but I don't understand. How is this a story and AV drilling is less of a story? I don't know. I mean, you know, Piarco was played out in the press, to be fair. Last story. This one I find interesting. The Commissioner of Prisons apparently has taken offense to what the head of the Prisons Association has said after a prisons officer was shot dead about 4 days ago. And I get it. It's kind of weird. It seems as though it's almost like a war of semantics, because the Commissioner of Prisons is the association head speaking on behalf of the association when it kind of wants to put the fault on having cell phone jammers in the prisons, almost as though, you know, you want to blame that or say that's the cause. And I think the Commissioner of Prisons himself is also trying to say that, look, it's not necessarily true that the murder had anything to do with the officer's job. Of course, that statement, unless there's evidence to show a different motive, that statement kind of appears weak given the fact that a Deputy Commissioner of Prisons was attacked not too long ago. And this is not the first prison officer who was also attacked. This war of the words is very interesting. And he also called the, I don't want to say ignorant, but, well, he also said the association head was ignorant about the fact that the prisons is looking to rectify one of the problems that the association head revealed. That is that the phones, the authorized phones, landlines for prisoners to use weren't working, and the prison association is looking to rectify that. My thing is, you know, how long have you been trying to rectify that? That's point number one. Point number two, the association head is basically saying, look, we're afraid for our lives. And we've seen our members get attacked and killed in some cases. So, I don't know. I guess it just comes back down to we have a busted criminal justice system and we're seeing the fallout play out in various areas, and this is potentially one of them. Ironically, prisons officers are more on the front lines dealing with gangs because they have to, as opposed to police officers. That's what it seems like. Folks, let's take a break. When we come back, hopefully we will have our guests as well as other stories to speak about here on Talking Point. Stay tuned.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Like many others trying to save on Carnival, Gabby thought she should go for 50% off makeup.
What about the other side? Well, Daisy 50% off offer. So, you know.
No makeup artist we don't know. What we do know is the savviest savings for Carnival are at KFC. Get a Jab Jab box, 1-piece chicken, 1 regular fries, and a biscuit for only $25.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sport?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen, and joining me now, quite early, hopefully not too early, we have with us the media ambassador of the TTPS, ASP Ashraf Ali. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Sean.
So, just before we get into Carnival Safety talks, the new recruits, how have you and your colleagues been looking at the amount of recruits flooding the process?
I mean, well, that is a positive on the part of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I mean, you could look at it in two perspectives. One is that job security, a lot of person just decide they want to be a police officer because of the context of job security. On the other hand, it speaks volume to the nature of the type of officers and the willingness of these individuals, these young men and women who are still willing to, in light of everything, still putting up their hand to serve Trinidad and Tobago. So it is, in fact, a positive light for Trinidad and Tobago that we have so many young men and women who are still willing to serve in this profession, which is really under some serious pressure.
Would these recruits be ready in time to help out with any of like the basic functions of policing, patrolling, carnival? No, that's not on cards, right?
That's not on
carnival is too soon.
Yes, too soon, because the process is still taking place, and that will be too soon to bring those inexperienced individuals, really green persons, be it that we may have officers in that persons who are joining who will have some experience, because we don't have some special reserve police officers who have experience and choose to become a member of a regular police, and they will have gone through this process also. So in the mix, but for the purpose of under the umbrella of trainees, they are all considered to be new recruits, and notwithstanding their varying level of experiences, they still would not be allowed to come out and get on streets. Like
that begs the question. I don't know if you could just, because this is one of those technical things that people might not fully understand. Not everybody that wears the gray and blue is part of the TTPS per se, right? I know for one instance, I think the port security at the ferry, the inter-island ferry service, they wear a similar uniform to the police service, but they're not.
Those are port police. I think
port police, right?
It's a light blue.
Yeah, not quite the same, but still, they're not actually members of the TTPS, which does matter for a lot of different instances. So what's the difference between a member of the police service and an SRP?
Okay, so an SRP is a special reserve police officer, right? So they work at SRP, all right. They are not full, how I could say, they have not gone through the rigorous training of the regular Trinidad and Tobago police officers. Their requirements to become an SRP is less than that of a regular police, right? So they are there to assist and augment the Trinidad and Tobago police service, right? So you have those two areas, and a special reserve police officer can also be a full-time SRP or a part-time SRP.
Okay.
The full-time SRP, he or she would have indicated that you want to join the special reserves and you are available to perform duties full-time. Then you have part-time SRPs who may have other jobs and they are only able to perform the job as a special reserve police officer part-time when they are released from their other other jobs. So their primary job is their first job, and their secondary job is the additional additional hours that we provide work in the police service, providing that level of assistance. And now there's a lot of contention with special reserve or police officers working. Let me make it clear: a special reserve police officer can in fact hold another job,
right,
and perform another job simultaneously. So he or she can have more than one job as being a police officer.
Would an SRP be expected to kind of have to deal with violent confrontations on the same level that a normal police officer or a full-time police officer would have to?
Yes, he or she would, and that's why when they come in, they will have another level of training, and they will be given a certain level of training. As also, during the course of their tenure, they would also be given some exposed to some additional training. So we have SRP officers who have been in the police service for more than 10, 15 years.
Okay.
Right, because they may not have had all the qualifications, right? But because of their experience, they choose to remain as a special reserve officer for that, and they have been given valuable service to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
And municipal police, that's different to the police service as well?
Yes, they fall under the local government, and they are all special reserve police officers also.
Okay.
Right, but they are not. They are under the Special Reserve Police Act 1502, but they are not guided or I should say supervised by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service under the umbrella of the Commissioner. Right, they do have their Assistant Commissioner of Police and superintendents just like us, and they have their officers in different regional corporations.
And training would be normally at the same facility?
Yes, some of them do in fact have training at the same facility and similar type training.
So for those who might think, okay, I might not be able to be a police officer for whatever reason, this is still an avenue where they could get potentially even a full-time job, or for those who wish they could have a part-time job and wish they could be a police officer, have it part-time and keep with their own part-time job.
Yeah, because we have police officers, special reserve police officers who actually work in other security firms.
Okay.
Right. We have part-time officers who work in the medical area. Right. So we have probably have some nurses. We have nurses and attendants at the hospital. We have part-time officers who work in a wide range of jobs that choose to become a police officer and still give service, and they come into the police service and do part-time jobs.
And folks, just from my perspective, I could see where sometimes, ironically, you never know when their side job experience might actually come into play. Well, no, this is how this is done. This is how this industry works.
It does in fact bring a level of experience to the police service, because they are specialists in certain areas, right? And their experience is utilized in a manner in which wherever they are performing, they share that experience at the same time.
They might have more information about a geographical location that they work in, day-to-day information. You know, it's hard to observe certain things when you're in police uniform and a police car. People will, kind of stop whatever they're doing. But if you're just normal guy, normal job, you might actually...
It has its pros and cons, it has its benefits, right? And it all depends on the circumstance. So
now, Carnival, again, I mean, there's so many things to speak about with regards to safety. And I know that we were talking about be careful with the drinking and driving, and then of course there's this horrible story, which I have actually actively tried not necessarily to read too much on, where 2 adults, I believe in Tobago, were killed and a baby in the car managed to survive, which is just that kind of level of tragedy, right? And to some extent fortune, because fortunately the baby survived, but it just goes to show that the words that you're kind of telling us, they seem obvious, right? Don't drink and drive. You remember back in 1995, don't drink and drive in 95. Like,
yeah.
but these basic, simple things, you know, when you lose somebody to this sort of thing.
It's still not sinking in the way it's supposed. Like, you're going in, you know, the old people have a saying, you're going in one ear and come out the other. It's similar to that. We don't see the seriousness unless it actually impacts both within your space. You know, directly, some family member, friend, or some colleague close to you, that is the only time then you just start to take it a little more serious. Other than that, we just don't really pay much attention to it, because you're always saying, it wouldn't happen to me, and I better than that, and you're always making some excuse or saying why that person would have gotten themselves in that situation, because I wouldn't put myself in that situation, I wouldn't get myself in that situation. But sometimes you don't know. You really, really don't know.
So how has the Carnival festivities gone on so far? Because I do know personally, I don't get out that much, but there was a fete at a private business, I guess you could say, a private hotel near me, and that impacted my Sunday morning, because parking, what you said, parking in the road, right?
Yeah.
And this was a road not designed for parking in the road. So when you have pockets on both sides of a road not designed for parking, it caused a lot of stress.
Sometimes I mean, Carnival itself is something that is unique to Trinidad and Tobago, right? And the events leading up to Carnival is, in my opinion, what brings that entire Carnival together. Carnival Monday and Tuesday is one aspect of it.
Yes.
But everything that is leading up to Carnival is what brings everything together for Carnival Monday and Tuesday. So we will have to accept that there will be some level of inconvenience, be it in additional parking on the streets, some level of noise that may or may not be acceptable for some persons in some area. And the reason for that is because many of our venues do really have, it's not designed for events. And the way we are geographically located in some of the areas, it's within residential and commercial spaces at the same time. We have a complete mix. So we don't really have isolated areas that we can say, okay, such as, for example, if you're going to have an event at the Brian Lara, well, if you go to the Brian Lara Stadium, where it is located in Turuba, off that highway, and if you're having an event there, it may not cause as much challenges in terms of noise and high traffic, because the venue can facilitate a large volume of vehicles. Same thing with the Queen's Park Savannah. It can in fact accommodate a large volume of vehicles, but at the same time, it is in the heart of the city, which in effect will cause some traffic interruptions. Yes.
Like the Oval, you have to use the park next door and maybe QRC to try to get, otherwise, you know, sometimes when there are events in the Oval, you'll just have cars just in the streets and traffic not moving around the Oval.
And that's why we do in fact ask the public to have some level of consideration. I mean, you're going to a fete, it have a number of persons, the same way you want to enjoy yourself, the other person is going to join the fete, but traffic will also be a part of it.
To what extent, you know, would parking violations be enforced? Is that for, if it's in Port of Spain, would that be for the Port of Spain City Corporation and the records from the mayor's office to deal with, or would the police?
The police will in fact get involved in it if it is such. It is in a way that it is causing it is absolutely necessary to wreck the vehicles. Right, we know that parking in certain areas will be very limited, so we do give some leeway or accommodation for parking, but we also ask the public to take into consideration also where you're parking, to not inconvenience the residents in the area. Not because you're going to a fete and the fete is happening here, you have the right to block the driveway of an individual, because you don't know at what point in time that person may or may not have an emergency that needs to leave. And because of your ignorance, you park your vehicle in front and block the person's driveway. So yes, you can park, but you have to have some consideration at the same time.
Now, that begs an interesting question. What happens if I'm in that situation, right? Or a situation like it, but we'll use this example for the sake of simplicity. Someone is parked in front of my driveway, and I have a medical emergency. And I don't know about you, but this is not like the States where you dial 911 and an ambulance is going to become racing down in 5 minutes, right? There are ambulance services. I just don't know to what extent they could be trusted, right? Not saying that they can't. I just don't know to what extent in an emergency, unless, of course, I need an ambulance for transportation. So if there's a car blocking me now, do I have a responsibility to this person's car, or can I use reasonable means to move it out the way?
Well, I wouldn't.
I'm not advocating crashing through it.
I'm not saying that it is dependent on the situation. So if it is that you need to get the vehicle moved, you could communicate with the police. The police will in fact make arrangements to have the vehicle wrecked.
Okay.
Right? At no cost of the
although at that point, if I can communicate with the police, maybe it's better if I just ask the police to take the person to the hospital instead of worrying about.
And it all depends on all depends on the circumstance. But generally, that is one of the concerns we normally have from the publics when we have events in these areas where we have persons who are attending the functions. Their mindset is only coming to the fete or the party, and not understanding that wherever I park, I may be causing an obstruction to somebody or putting them in a particular position.
Because there's also the fact that, and I just see this day to day on the Savannah. So there's some areas with the Savannah where there's a white line, there's extra space, cars could park there without impeding the flow of the 3 lanes, of the inner lane.
Yeah.
But then what happens when, a lot of cars are parked? All of a sudden people keep parking, the line is disappeared, right? You're now parking technically in the inner lane. And this is just one example where it doesn't have to be parking blocking a gate, but you're parking in a way that's impeding traffic.
The free flow, the free flowing traffic, and then that can pose a risk also.
But also the person's vehicle. If the person who makes that park's vehicle is damaged, can they say it's somebody else's fault or no, reasonably it's their fault, right?
You contributed towards that, and that's why from the onset of this year we talking about safety, right? And one of the concepts we talk about safety is something called SMART. The acronym SMART. And what SMART means is safety measures aimed at reducing threats. So right now we are speaking about inappropriate parking, indiscriminate parking, and parking your vehicle in a manner that will pose a risk or a threat to other road users, as well as maybe putting your vehicle at risk of getting bounced or getting damaged. That is why we continue to say, if you know you're going to park your vehicle in a manner that in your perspective, it may not cause any additional risk to other road users or cause a problem for yourself. At the same time, we also have the threat of your vehicle being stolen, which is much more greater than that we think, because you may just choose a parking location not with your mindset of reaching to the fete and enjoying yourself, and when you're ready to leave the fete, you realize that somebody decided to take your vehicle, because wherever you park your vehicle, you just park your vehicle without considering anything else.
I mean, to be fair to that, I have an anti-theft device in my car, not because my car is that expensive, folks. It's not, but for the sake of not wanting to have to go through that, I have an anti-theft device just for day-to-day use, and I would recommend people, some sort of internal physical lock, not an alarm, because alarms will go off in parking lots, and how many people really take them on, right? They just say somebody's car alarm went off.
So we just keep on reinforcing some of these SMART, the acronym SMART, and we call it making smart decisions. Smart decision in the way that you drive, smart decisions in the way that you that you socialize, smart decisions in the way that you go to fetes.
Would you also say that people, and I want to kind of just switch gears here now, but also smart with regards to where you go and what kind of fetes you go to?
Well, that is all in the context of the SMART acronym. And yes, we do we don't want to tell you which fet to choose because we're not promoting any fets.
Right.
Right? But you need to understand that you need to make a decision, and I would say make a smart decision as to the type of fet, location of the fet that you want to go. Right? The type of crowd that fet may bring, whether it's your type of crowd, whether you feel that I'm just going there because some of my colleagues say, hey, I'm going to this fet, so you just choose to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, you need to make those smart decisions, right? One of the things that we know that when you go to fets, we have to be very careful is that, and I spoke about it a little on the last occasion, that when you go to these fets, know who you're aligning with, know who your colleagues, know who is within your crowd. Because sometimes you can go, and while you're there, you meet someone, and you want to leave, and next thing you know,
sometimes, and in the past, this might have been more true. Strangers would be more willing to, hey, I don't really know this person, but they were around, and I don't want to see anything bad happen to them, but now I do wonder in this situation, or rather the circumstances we're in. To what extent will people be willing to kind of put themselves out there to safeguard a stranger? Because I think the perception now of putting yourself in any sort of situation might be too risky.
And exactly. So you may see a confrontation taking place.
Right.
Let's say a confrontation taking place between, for discussion purposes, a male and a female. You may or may not want to engage and voice your opinion or something like that, because like I said, and as you're mentioning, person might want to make a smart decision, not to because of whatever risk and historically whatever risk that they may pose to themselves getting involved in that situation, but then on the other side of it, you not engaging or trying to avoid or deconflict that situation may allow that situation to escalate where one of the parties could become injured or become a victim of some crime. So it's all about trying to be very understanding the environment, understanding where you are going, and making some decisions, as we say, making these smart decisions in all these circumstances. And there are several different areas that we have to make smart decisions coming forward. It's not only for the FET situation, it's about who you are engaging in the FET. Are you going to take
well, especially for young women.
Beverages,
yeah,
beverages from any and anyone. Are you going to leave with somebody because you're just going to leave with somebody, or you really don't know, or you just pick up somebody in a FET and you're just lying with them and you decide to go with somebody, and then you leave your entire, as you say, leave your entire crew, all your colleagues together, and you decide to go with this individual. Those are not smart decisions, but at the same time, you may not be able to make smart decisions under the influence at that point in time.
Yeah, just to mention the general story that came out from a lot of last week into this week. Of course, there were security meetings and stakeholders were involved. Is there any concerns that this carnival might need to have a little bit more vigilance with regards to the security services on last year's, or as the head of the Promoters Association said, well, Carnival, it's not as though we have statistics to say Carnival is this unsafe time where murders during fetes and all of this thing and the Wild West is happening during Carnival. To be fair to the police service, it is true that generally speaking, Carnival, yes, we have crime, but the crime does not seem to be attributed to Carnival. It's not like we see a spike because we have Carnival.
And that is true from our historical data. What causes that, what mitigates that is the number of officers and the activities leading up to Carnival. And even from Juve morning all the way through Carnival, the number of officers out on the streets, you have exercises, the patrols, the road checks, and the accommodation of the general public to facilitate those checks, because as far as they're concerned, this is a measure for them to be safe. So they don't have, so the public is very, very accommodating from Juvie all the way back.
Right.
Because they're comfortable. Because in their mindset, they want a safe carnival. So whatever measures that we put in place...
Which is funny, because other parts in the year, it's like, oh God, why they have this roadblock
Right.
for? But carnival...
And we have no issues with that, because we try our best not to interrupt carnival, because it's a national event and it has international implications in terms of our tourism, and we want carnival to be safe, right? But what we have to be very cognizant of, and we are cognizant of the fact that the number of incidents that we had last year outside of a carnival period, we do in fact have situations where we have gang violence, violent acts where persons would have discharged weapons indiscriminately and persons would have been injured. So we have to take those things into consideration. And notwithstanding, we're not going to blow the horn and say that carnival is going to be marred with serious violence. But we must take that in consideration as proper planners and as the organization responsible for public safety and security at these events. So all these events leading up to carnival, we have to take that in consideration.
Just to switch gears, and we don't need to go into too much detail now, we could always come back to this. But in the last couple of weeks, there have been certain attacks and or murders, gun violence against business owners. Now, we don't know all of the details with regards to what they may or may not be involved in, but is there any concern with regards to things like extortion? We know with contractors, that has been a thing, you know, and it hasn't necessarily been in the press. And this is one of my fears, that it could also spill out into carnival, actually. But is there any concerns that there's maybe an uptick in threats against businessmen and business owners, businesswomen, you know, that threats for extortion?
No. There was some reports last year that persons were making claims in a particular area where they said businessmen were being threatened. Notwithstanding that, really and truly, you don't really get those type of reports coming forward,
right?
Because of multiple situations, and persons may be afraid of coming out and giving information as to who and what and what is the circumstance of the threat. But it is in fact something that we will always be paying attention to, because it's really an opportunity where criminals utilize an avenue to extort money, whether for favor or financial gains. In any particular situation, they would utilize it. So to say that it has been escalated, or there's the uptick is that it's greater than the average, there's nothing for us right now to indicate that. But we just can't put our heads in the sand. These things are always red flag for us. Even if one incident takes place, it means that they just came to our attention of one incident. How many more has occurred, and nobody came forward? So once we hear one, and that someone who willing to come out and speak, we start to sensitize and we ask for persons to come forward so we can get some more information as to where it emanated from and what the circumstances behind them.
I mean, this is just one of those cases where, again, it's similar to some extent to domestic issues. Like, you need people to come forward to speak about it, otherwise you're just not going to know.
Yeah, and then we have the other situation now where social media now is being utilized much more than we expect to promote threats, and there's some very disturbing voice notes that have been circulating. I know that has been getting some attention from National Security and the Office of the Commissioner. I can't divulge what is being done with respect to that at this point in time, but as it was circulating on social media, the contents of the contents and the context in which the information was shared, it was very concerning, and it is alarming to us in the manner in which those individuals are speaking. Now, because of the fact that it is not targeted to one entity alone, they mention a lot of different persons, a lot of different entities and organizations within it. So
and people in high office.
Yes, so it is our concern for us, and it is getting some serious attention.
I think, and if you don't know what it is that we're talking about, it is in today's papers. It's one of those things where you don't necessarily want to talk about it, too much or give away certain details because that could be unsafe. But I'll just say that I do fear, it might be talk now, but I did say, old people, little children, babies, as Deputy Commissioner of Prisons, right? As the attacks become more brazen, somebody's gonna get a dumb idea someday and do something really stupid, and we will be left to lament. Hopefully we could, nip it in the bud before anything bad actually happens. But I think this voice note is just not so much an example of a clear and present threat, but rather an example of, people who are accustomed to an aggressive lifestyle. They might kind of lose themselves in the, well, I have to up the stakes now and puff my chest more and be the bigger, better man and show you. And, you know how aggression is,
yes,
right?
Yes.
You end up doing something or saying something very stupid just for the sake of doing it. And, maybe this is an example of that, but hopefully it doesn't escalate further. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines for you, the viewers, to call in. Of course, you could have questions with regards to Carnival security or safety, or have your own scenarios where you might like some advice. Maybe you experienced something over the weekend with some of the threats that might happen over the past weekend. Of course, we have other stories that I mentioned earlier, so you could call in on that. Oh, correction, yes, there's a new chairman of the Integrity Commission. My mistake, I'm not sure if I did not see it or just forgot that it happened, because like I said earlier, so many things, so many controversies happening, you can't keep up with it, folks. But this is Talking About here on WESN. Stay tuned, we'll be right back to take your phone calls after this.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas, and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
My name is Carl Media. I am the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. So the phone lines are open. The numbers should be appearing on your screen shortly. There they are. And you could call in and have your say. The carnival situation, I guess some of us, we take it for granted. As carnival happens every year. But I think part of it too is the aggravation and the stress of it for those who don't necessarily partake also happens every year. So you could call in and if you have any questions with regards to what is the potential recourse if you are being inconvenienced unreasonably. That's a key word, unreasonably. It's also a subjective word, but it is what it is. That's the best we got, folks. Call in and you can ask your questions and see if the ASP could help you. And like I said, you could call it on all of the other things that we spoke about too. So now we will wait for your calls. I guess, it's funny because usually I'm hesitant to start a conversation because 80% of the time it gets cut off as I more or less ask the question to you. But security concerns, one of the things that I am lamenting, we saw, well, it was reported, I don't know, we didn't have as much details as previous attacks, but that case in the Savannah, it was 4 men armed with rifles. Is it that we're seeing a escalated level of violence now with the murders just in general? And as I ask the question, we have our first caller from Tobago. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Yes, good morning to the host again. This one is related to the officer there. I just need to find out something in relation to what he is speaking about, the special reserve, right? They do not care, according to what he has said, they do not go through the special training as what he said, the police officers, but on the outside there, it is very strange that they are carrying out the same functions as police officers and behave worse and more radical than the regular police officers. What does has to say about that? Why the same functions and they could carry out other jobs, and the real police, let's put it that way, if they are to do anything private, it is considered moonlighting. Could you enlighten us, please?
Well, yes, like I indicated, Arima.
Well, okay, well, we'll take Arima. You're on the air. Good morning, caller.
Morning.
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 Well, I was following the program from the start. And I have to admit to you, thanks for alleviating the plight of P.S. Myers, who was dishonorably sent on leave and then to be transferred. But what I want to talk about, I was talking about the promotion system in the police service. And I want to correct you on something.
Sure.
Promotion is a matter of motivation. And it helps to improve the morale of the employee. Now, for me, the police are one of the hardest jobs to have because coming out from COVID into Carnival, they do get arrested really, you know. So, if they lack it, why is it that the people who are in charge denying the officers a little promotion? They're already understaffed and overworked. Come on, man. It's time for we to get we act together.
All right.
And treat people how they should be treated as human beings and not as things. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. I understand what you're saying. I'll respond to that and we'll respond to the caller before, but we have Petty Valley on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air? Morning, Petty Valley.
Morning, Sean and the officer there.
Morning, morning. Good morning.
My contribution this morning is stemmed from a question this morning on a radio station. The question was if crime is affecting Carnival. Most of the callers called in and say yes. I was in the minority. And first of all, I told the host the question was premature because first you might have to get back the numbers from arrival after Carnival that who came in the country and stuff and things to really know. And to my observation, watching some of the young people fets, seeing them full, I will still go where custom going. Whether it's crime, I'll go to my panorama, I'll go to my 2-3 selected fet that'll go, I'll still go. And you know, so to me, I don't see it as yet as crime is affecting the Carnival. So, and then I guess you have to wait on the numbers, how much people, as I said, come in the country and stuff. So that is my contribution this morning.
Thank you, caller. That's a good observation because, as we pointed out, statistically speaking, it's not that there's anything to suggest crime is really, you know, has harmed Carnival the last couple of years. And you're right, we're now starting off, and we can't just attribute random crimes that happened during the same time period to have anything to do with Carnival. There's nothing to suggest that. So that's a very fair assumption to make. And we will respond to the first 2 callers after this caller from San Fernando. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Morning, sir. Morning, SPLE.
Morning, sir.
Morning, morning.
SPLE, I want to talk this morning about, there seems, well, I shouldn't say this, we continue with the large amount of murders committed in this country by young men with high-powered firearms. The detection rate in the police service still remains under 20%, and I'm putting it generously, it's under 20%. So that part of the service is not working well in terms of detection. But I'm not seeing any suppression strategies to any great extent happening in the country. And I'm saying that based on the fact that the murders are continuing. The other thing is we see there was a crime symposium a regional crime symposium they had several months ago. Now we're seeing reports of coming out of St. Lucia that gang members from Trinidad went to St. Lucia to recruit, to affiliate themselves with gangs in St. Lucia. That came out of a St. Lucia report. And it seems to me that the criminals are getting way ahead of the state. And this is very worrying to me. This is very worrying. Because I'm saying this to you, ASPRD, because I know you are the conduit to the commissioner for us. So I hope I want you to express these concerns to the commissioner. Because it seems as if you look at social media, and if social media has a wealth of information for the police, the Instagram, the Facebook, because they are on social media. These criminal elements are on social media. And one of the contributors to this violence, ASPRD, one of, is that Trinidad music. And I hope, Sean, I don't know if you understand Trinidad music and could get some research and go into it, because I have gone into it. And Trinidad music is some of the worst, they speak some of the most vile things on that thing. And it's about violence. It is about violence. And one more thing, ASPRD, they use, when they put up their videos, they have these disclaimers. Is there a system in the police service where when they make these videos, that those firearms that they display on those videos, because they claim that they are props, I have seen some of those videos, and I am telling you, some of those firearms that they display in those things ain't no props. Is there a system when they do these things that they have to come to the police service to get permission to use these props? Because as far as I know, if I have a toy gun and the police come at me and I pull out a toy gun, I can get arrested for a toy gun. So are these props? Is there a system where they have to get permission to use these props? And if not, isn't there legislation, but the fact that they with these videos that they have and they display themselves, that they could be arrested? I'll listen off it. Thank you.
Thanks, caller. A lot to unpack there. I don't know where you want to start first, if you remember the first caller's question.
So I just start with the first caller with respect to these Special Reserve Police officers.
Yeah.
Yes, they are in fact not trained for the entire 6 months period as the regular police officers. Unfortunately, at this point in time and over the past couple of years, Special Reserve Police officers have been performing a lot of the duties of a regular police officer.
Right.
And that has been some of the calls by the association to rectify those type of situations because of the fact that the argument is that they are not fully trained and able to carry out the proper functions as a regular police officer with that similar level of training. So that is something I am saying that that's an executive decision in terms of the administrative structure and how they treat with that going forward. But the reality is true what the caller indicated from Tobago, that some of these officers are not properly trained.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they impact the way that the police service behave. So I don't want to blame Special Reserve Police officers alone. There are some of them who are very good in what they do and have been able to adapt and elevate themselves in the police service. But we also have regular police officers who have gone through all those training and still behave in the same manner also.
Right, but at the end of the day though, when you have a group of people with less training and you put more on them,
yes,
and they don't have the training, that to some extent starts off with it's a policy issue. And then, of course, to some extent, it will be an individual issue as well.
It also brings the bear to the fact that we also have some challenges with respect to that.
Now, with regards to promotions, the second caller was about promotions. From my understanding of any paramilitary organization or military organization, it's a pyramid. So at some point, not everybody could be promoted. That's just the way it is, right?
It is.
You would hope that the promotions are based off of merit. No organization is going to be 100% perfect, but that would be the hope, the ideal. And at some point, unless you are one of the best of your generation, I guess you could say, you are potentially going to face the situation where there are no realistically more promotions for me, because there are other people who is one of the best of my group who is probably going to be promoted ahead of me.
But then and promotion is in fact an opportunity to improve an organization as well as a motivation factor in an organization, right?
Right, because the best gets promoted.
I wouldn't say the best, but it's an opportunity for you to put yourself to lead in
to work towards
and go to another organization and lead coming. I don't think any police officer who joined the police service has an expectation that after 10, 15, 20 years I remain at the same position.
Right.
They would look to elevate themselves, whether by promotion or academically, or improve their status in the way that they investigate, do additional training courses within the police service that the service offer to develop themselves more as a police officer. Because just remember, when you go into the academy as those recruits right now, you bring persons from the population of Trinidad and Tobago in there and then start to train a police officer.
But is there other means of promotion beyond just a higher rank that has higher responsibility? Because I know, like in the American military, there are two tranches.
No,
there's a specialist promotion tranche, and then there is a leadership.
We only have one structure within the police service.
Okay.
All right. We don't have the other avenues as the other organizations like paramilitary or military have.
Right.
Where you have how you call it? I'm forgetting the name.
Warrant officers, specialists, branches, tech specialists.
We don't have those type of things right at this point in time.
All right, we do have a caller on the line from Digicel. We'll get back to the responses to the other calls, but let's take this call next. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, hi, you all. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sean, I'm sorry I'm late with this, but I wish to refer to Friday's video of the parent violently beating the teenage girl, because I saw it late. Now, I accidentally saw that video while I was scrolling down that morning. The host of the show introduced it by asking if it was discipline or abuse. The person you showed in your clip he asked if there was he said actually there was a fine line between discipline and abuse. Those two responses alone show people's attitude and their tendency to hostility, anger, and violence. There is no fine line between discipline and abuse. That is a massive chasm. Every time the subject comes up, even though I know that it's the general response from our public, especially from politicians, is, oh, I got some good cut, you know, a word we can't say on TV, growing up, and look how well I turned out. Even though I know that, I am still appalled. There is overwhelming evidence to support that beating a child is inflicting pain, trauma, fright, anxiety, psychological harm on children. I mean, we know this. I muted that video, but I heard when the host, when I changed it back, the host said something like, someone intervened. But that person held down the child and encouraged the thing. I mean, it is just horrific. And a comment from one of those viewers was, I find it was 50-50, like it was a game or something. This is atrocious. We know that if a child lives with violence, a child will learn violence. So, ASP Ali, can you please tell me if people are charged for abusing children like this? Thank you. Bye.
Well, let me deal with this one directly before we go to the answer. Physical violence against any child considered to be, it's an abuse, all right, under the Children Act. If persons go beyond and inflict any bodily harm against a child, it's an offense. This particular topic, it's very controversial because of persons' upbringing and their beliefs. Right? I understand what the caller is saying, and what she said the other callers would have commented, because there is in fact a very, very fine line. And when I say the fine line it implies that you really do not know which side you're on, because you can discipline an individual, but the manner in which you discipline someone, you are already crossing that line, and you didn't even know that you crossed the line already. And for the example the caller utilizing there could never be a big gap between what is considered to be discipline and what is considered to be abuse. It is so close. It is so close.
I think for the caller's point, caller, perhaps we should look at it. My perspective is it's a fine line, but the line is, you know, how do I put it? There's less leeway than you think. It's not that, oh, there's a fine line and all of this is abuse and all of this is fine. It's more like there's a fine line and what's acceptable is actually not that wide.
And that is
you know, a lot of it is abuse.
That is the next thing. Historically, or in the early parts, the older generation, when you say you get a couple belts, that is abuse. Let's call it as it is.
Right.
It's abuse. But it was accepted in society and not being classified as abuse because it's called discipline. So in that context, I am saying it's that is where the fine line is, because society has accepted that in that time where corporal punishment in that instance was considered to be acceptable and part of a discipline process within the school environment. However, based on all the research and based on all the information that was coming forward, the caller is right. And that type of discipline created or impacted the child development and growth from a psychological perspective, and it is now considered to be abuse because of the trauma the child would have gone through there. So that is a very, very controversial topic in my book.
Yes.
Right, because based on your upbringing, based on your moral and ethical standards, that's how you look at it. You may choose one side of the table.
Because several of our callers, they spoke about their own upbringing, right? And what they said, it wasn't as though they were bruised, they had marks. They didn't mention belt and switch and all of that. But they did mention some kind of strokes. You know, when I was in primary school, it was a ruler on the hand.
But what you are saying to yourself at this point in time, from a psychological perspective, Right, and the reason I can say that I am also a peer counselor, so nobody feels as I'm a police officer alone.
Right.
I have some level of understanding of psychology. So you yourself speaking about it, making it acceptable by saying it is only a two belts I get is only that because you accepted that. You have now how you should say, assimilated in your system and saying you made a defense towards it.
So one of the interesting things I guess you could say is where we place the line is different mentally for different people.
Yes.
So that's part of what makes it controversial because we're not necessarily going to agree when or what constitutes crossing the line.
But those type of videos and where a person's outright physically abused a child.
Well, not just that. One of the videos that I showed, the person in the video said not just abused but filmed it.
And
filmed it and record it and display it.
And that is also an offense. It's also an offense under the Children's Act that person can be prosecuted once it is pursued.
Okay, I just wanted to get to, I think it was San Fernando's caller. He did mention the murder detection rate and not seeing a lot of suppression strategies, although I generally don't like in the long run suppression strategies, but I can understand in the short run. But he also mentioned about the trends of criminals, like gang members going to St. Lucia, and maybe it seems as though they're kind of a step ahead of the state, right, in the trends and the methods.
You see, we tend to believe criminal elements are always a step of us.
Right.
But let's be realistic. In any organization, so let me just break it down to an analogy from organizational perspective. How do you improve your organization? By being creative, by thinking out box, by utilizing any other methodology, any other strategy to get the edge on your competitors.
Right.
If you look at it from that perspective, yes, they have in fact gone across to the other areas. We have our next door neighbors. They have linked with our next door neighbors and up the Caribbean and have been exchanging and collaborating and coordinating with all these areas. Even in Trinidad, we have connection between the north and the south and different crime elements who are involved in card thieving, who put on robbery, or who has a firearm. So the network is there. We are already law enforcement throughout the world always one step behind.
Yes.
Right?
It's just nature.
It is not. It is nature of the. It is nature
because
of the
you're
animal.
Responding to.
Yes, we're always responding to that. Our intelligence will give us information as to what is potential and what is up and running. But at the same time, it's only intelligence and information to work towards. Mm-hmm. We can't put countermeasures immediately because unless we have.
Yeah, it has to happen for you to
supporting data, right? So yes, it appears that we are already always one step behind. Unfortunately, that's sometimes how this be.
Yeah, I think any sort of competitive arms race, folks, it's a cycle. It's a never-ending cycle, and even if the protective services kind of catch up and even get ahead, the nature of it, just the nature of it is that at some point you're going to fall behind again and you're going to have to try to catch up again in any sort of competitive environment. And I'll just say this to wrap up the show. I know, Mr. Sanfana, you pointed to Trinidad music, and that is a topic that I think is very difficult for me to grasp on, because I'll say this. In the past, there have been concerns about other media forms, art forms, music, video games, movies, TV shows, etc., and how it impacts children and young people and their perception of violence. And statistically speaking, no other form of medium has actually proven to have a statistically relevant impact on young people. However, with regard to Trinidad music, I think perhaps the type of impact is somewhat different, and it does bring up into question. With regards to the gun props, I'll just say it doesn't necessarily have to have been filmed in Trinidad. I don't know if it was. But with regards to the art form itself, and I will call it art, whether it is good or bad for society, it is what it is. It does bring that into question. Now, it's the first time where I'm going to have to reconsider my opinion at the fact that these things generally do not incite young people to violence. I do know that it's something about the aggression in the art form, and perhaps it speaks to what young people in society are looking for that they're turning towards art form that is that aggressive. In the 90s, it was gangster rap, and there are other examples. You could go on and on and on and on and on. And perhaps this is just the latest chapter, or perhaps this is something different. Time will tell. Just so happens that quite a lot of the artists have been killed, so the art form itself might not last that long. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I'll leave that there for you to decide. Folks, I want to thank ASP Ali for joining me. I want to thank all of our callers. Quite some interesting topics and perspectives brought up today. This is Talking About on WSN. Make today a good day. My host always says to have a good day. But we will see you tomorrow morning. Stay safe. Keep well. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of ever-increasing voice ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the Home Store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Came into Ra'anana. He stabbed a woman in order to take her car. He then drove her car in the main street of Ra'anana, ran people over. That car, for some reason, had to be changed. I don't know if he ran into something. He got into another car, proceeded to continue to run people over until, in the end, he was shot. So that young man, that perpetrator, is now dead, and two other people believed to be the driver and a relative of the driver of the car are being held. That's very initial reports. One woman has been injured badly, critically injured. She's now in hospital. And the other 10 or so are also being treated in hospital.
Iris Mackler for us there, and as I say, since we spoke to Iris, we've heard the confirmation there from the local hospital that one person has been killed in that attack. Well, now let's go for you to the situation in Gaza, where 3 UN agencies are calling today on Israel to allow access to the port of Ashdod, north of Gaza, in Israel, for the urgent delivery of humanitarian aid. This, of course, because the population in Gaza is increasingly at risk of famine. The UN saying today there needs to be a fundamental step change in how aid reaches the enclave. Inside of Gaza, at the same time, those battles between the army of Israel and Hamas are continuing, as are the Israeli bombardments.
On Monday morning, smoke billowed in northern Gaza after Israeli forces once again bombed the territory. Since the start of the war, many of its residents have fled south, although the bombings have followed them there as well. Palestinians who remember being expelled from their villages by Israeli forces in 1948 say the current conflict is worse.
This one is hard. It's harder than any of the displacements. They did not kill us then. We only left on foot. We kept on walking on the sand.
On October 7th, Hamas launched an attack that killed 1,200 Israelis, according to the Israeli government. The subsequent Israeli military campaign in Gaza has killed 20 times as many Palestinians, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Despite some international calls for a ceasefire, Israel says it has no intention of pausing hostilities.
Every minute is critically significant, and we work with every opportunity and way to bring them back. We do not intend to withdraw from Khan Yunis or from anywhere else. The military action takes time. It requires us to be precise, and we adapt it to the threats. and to the hostages that are in the area.
In the north, Gaza City lies in ruins. This was one of the first areas to be bombed by the Israeli army. The few remaining residents still face frequent bombings. On Saturday, a strike hit a building that housed 3 families.
Where is the International Court of Justice? Let it come and see what happened here. How much longer will this go on? My son is a martyr, my brother is a martyr, my nephews are martyrs. There is no rest.
According to the United Nations, the war has displaced 85% of Gaza's 2.3 million residents. They face acute shortages of food, water, medicine, and fuel, as well as a collapsing health system.
Well, it's time for some football on the programme, and the very latest from the African Cup of Nations, where the defending champion Senegal are kicking off their first match against Gambia today in about half an hour's time. Covering the tournament for us is our correspondent Justice Badu. He joins us now from the Ivorian capital where that match is to take place. Justice, so kick-off for Senegal-Gambia in around half an hour's time. I imagine fans are arriving now at the stadium behind you. What's the mood like there?
Well, fans are already trooping into the stadium. Stade Konan Bani, built only 2 years ago in preparation for this tournament. 20,000 capacity stadium. It's one of the freshly minted infrastructure that this country has put together in wait for this tournament. Yamoussoukro, which is the capital of the Ivory Coast, is the second place outside Abidjan that any of the matches in this tournament is happening, and many people are looking forward to it in this game that is expected to be a cracker. This city, unlike Abidjan, very calm, not busy, not so many people, not so much traffic, and yet a very, very historic city in the annals, or when you come to Ivory Coast. And so a lot of people have come in here and are in wait for this great game that kicks off in less than 30 minutes.
And I imagine the stakes high for both sides, but particularly for Senegal, given they are the reigning champions.
Yes, and so they are the team that is looking forward to do what only one team has ever done, which is Egypt, to be able to win this tournament back-to-back. So they opened their defense today, and of course they are tipped as a tournament favorite, and with the likes of Sadio Mane and some of the top stars of African football, they look likely that they are going to go all the way. But they have in their way Gambia, which is also their neighboring country, a country that is only making its second appearance at the AFCON. And so it's a really, really interesting game, a game of two neighbors. Gambia, not so much fancied in this tournament, but when they did first come to this tournament in 2021, they shocked many people and went all the way to the quarterfinals. Coming into this tournament, they experienced this tragedy, near-death tragedy, where they are playing lost oxygen only 9 minutes after taking off from Gambia, and they had to make a return. And so they have come here with a lot of emotions and a lot of things to be able to fight for, and so they would be looking forward to cause an upset today. But of course, everybody is looking forward to a smooth sailing victory for Senegal.
Indeed. Well, we'll see what happens. I hope you're managing to watch the match yourself. Justice Badu for us there outside the stadium there, about half an hour ahead of that match. Now in other news, hundreds of thousands of people on France's Indian Ocean island of Reunion are under a strict lockdown this Monday as a major storm makes landfall there. Cyclone Bilal has already left one person dead, and the eye of the storm is due to pass along the northern coast this afternoon. To discuss, our science editor Julia Seeger's with me. Julia, first of all, what is the current situation on the ground on the island?
Well, as you said, the eye of the cyclone moved in onto the island from the northwest while the French Overseas Department was in a violet alert. It's the highest level of alert that you can have with even emergency services that have to stay on lockdown. Now, violent winds reached more than 200 kilometers, especially in the center of the island, this mountainous region that deprived 130,000 households of electricity, 37,000 households of water, and, of course, triggering important floods. Now, it is a very important cyclone indeed, but it's much less devastating than feared, because at first it was believed that it was really going to rip through the entire island from end to end, and thankfully the trajectory deviated and it's now on its way towards Mauritius. Now it has followed the coast, the northern coast here and the eastern coast. So here we're talking about a classical tropical storm. I'm talking about a cyclone because of where it's happening in the world. It's in the Indian Ocean, but if it happens, for instance, in the Northwest Pacific, it's called a hurricane, and if it happens in the Southwest Pacific, it's called a typhoon, but actually all three terms refer to the same exact phenomenon. So what exactly happens? Well, when the sea surface reaches 26 degrees Celsius, and if that happens over the depth of 50 meters, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of water that's going to evaporate at once, and because of the rotation of the Earth, it's going to start swirling, and as that continues, it's going to feed more and more vapor into that spiral and become more powerful. Now, in the center, we have what we call the eye of the cyclone. You often hear about that. Well, it actually extends from 30 to 60 kilometers in general in diameter, and there's actually no rain, no wind. It's very, very calm. Around it, you have the wall of the eye. There you have extremely violent winds. If it happens over the sea, then you're going to have waves of more than 20 meters high. So here you're going to see on the satellite picture, you see the eye of the storm in the middle there. That's Bilal, so going over the island. And here on this amateur footage of this user on X, you see you're in the midst of this thunderstorm, and then at once it's just going to stop. There you see it. There's nearly no wind, no rain, and the wind is actually going to resume in just a few minutes, and it's going to resume in a very intense manner, an abrupt manner, and often in opposite direction. And authorities tend to fear that exact moment because people tend to think that it's over. Now, as I said, Bilal is now traveling towards Mauritius. There's already lots of flooding there because of the storm that's going towards it. Lots of scenes of chaotic scenes there, as you can see. We're in the streets of Port Louis there. Amateur footage, once again, shared on social media.
So we're talking about an intense tropical cyclone, Julia, and it's worth saying that that actually is really quite rare. In Reunion, we haven't seen such a phenomenon since 1989.
Well, we've seen a cyclone in 2014, but not of this intensity. We haven't seen a very intense cyclone since, I'd say, 1989 with Faringa, and even more Jenny in 1962, and that really marked people there because it was very devastating indeed. What happened at the time was that there was few observation posts in the Indian Ocean that were capable of really reporting the position and the magnitudes. So you can really see how technology is now helping us predict and prepare for these environmental phenomena.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Julia Seeger, our science editor, for us there. Well, it's time now on the programme for our focus report, and over 11 months have now passed since the deadly earthquake that shook the southeast of Turkey and the northeast of Syria. The official death toll stands at over 50,000 lives, but many victims are still missing. Assumed dead, their families, of course, desperate to know what happened to them. Our correspondents take us now to Antakya, a town all but wiped out in the earthquake of February 6th last year.
Mehmet is a father devastated by pain. This empty land is where Meral, his daughter, died.
We lost everything when we lost her. We lost our house. We lost our work. We lost her.
After the earthquake struck, Mehmet managed to get out of his destroyed house and rushed to his daughter's home. The 9-story building that once stood here had turned into rubble. With the help of his relatives, Mehmet started digging with his bare hands. He was eventually able to rescue his daughter's husband, who told him Meryl had died. But up until this day, Mehmet has no idea where her body is.
Görüşürüz. Hiç görmedik.
We didn't see her body.
Her gün
Every day I went to the medical facilities.
gidip geldim.
Every day I had to look at hundreds, thousands of corpses.
Evladının yerinin
To not be able to find where your child is.
sadece bir
Only a
anne
father
baba
and a mother
olan
can
insan var.
understand.
Onun haricinde
Apart from
ne
this,
söylesem,
everything is meaningless.
There is little left of what Antakya once was. This city, world famous for its cultural heritage, was the most affected by the February 6th earthquake, which according to official figures, killed almost 50,000 people. Its inhabitants, once proud of their city's rich history, now struggle to see a future. In this makeshift clinic, psychologist Nilgun Yeniochak sees many of her patients are struggling with unresolved grief. Life is so hard here, she says, that many people simply don't get round to grieving, especially if their loved ones are still missing.
We know there's still a lot of people missing. The numbers may vary, that's not important. But when someone remains missing, the grief experienced by their loved ones continues. Their unresolved pain prevents them from moving forward with their lives. It doesn't allow them to carry on, as they hold on to a feeling of both hope and hopelessness.
In the chaotic aftermath of the earthquake, thousands of unidentified victims ended up in mass graves. In many cases, the Turkish authorities took DNA samples of the bodies to be able to identify them at a later stage. Nearly a year later, however, Mehmet feels the state has simply not done enough to help him find his daughter.
We would be so relieved just to find her body. It's not about discovering that she's actually okay. It's just a confirmation that she has died. We thought of opening a trial, but that requires a lot of money. And we don't have that. We have to look for answers from the state, but there are none.
Locals in Antakya say that thousands of people are still looking for the bodies of their loved ones. In this laboratory in Istanbul, specialists try to match the DNA of unidentified earthquake victims with that of potential relatives. It is a daunting task, but the head of this institute says that the job is nearly done. Only a few hundred bodies, he says, are still to be identified.
As of today, our number of non-matched samples is 387. That's according to official figures. We think that some of them may be immigrants who had previously come to Hatay. But we hope that the number will drop further in the near future.
According to the people who took my girl here, this is where she was buried. But we can't know for sure. Here, somewhere else, we really don't know.
This cemetery just outside Antakya was made especially for earthquake victims. All of the gravestones here are marked by that same tragic date, the 6th of February, 2023. Yet many graves carry no names but numbers. They belong to the unidentified dead, like Mehmet's daughter.
I looked for my daughter everywhere, with everything I had. I'm still looking. I sent many messages to the governor, no reply. I went to the governorship. I went to the emergency services. I went to the Ministry of the Interior, the Ministry of Health. I went everywhere you could imagine. But unfortunately, she's nowhere to be found. How many more months will she not be here? We really don't know.
Without official confirmation, Mehmet feels he can never be sure where his daughter is. Yet sometimes he still comes here to pray, just in case, he says, grave number 854 belongs to Meryl.
And that report by our team in Antakya brings us to the end of this news hour. Thanks for watching, and do stay with us.
For the last 30 years, some women have been trying to reconstruct files destroyed by the East German secret police. They are known as the Puzzle Women.
Und wir waren ja dann auch neugierig, was da drin stand, warum sie ausgerechnet das vernichtet haben. Da haben wir dann angefangen, auch immer mal so Schnipsel zusammenzusetzen und zu gucken.
Each scrap of paper hides a secret, a story, a life.
Ob man die Akten überhaupt aufmachen soll, weil man befürchtet hat, dass man Wunden aufreißt, dass es Streitigkeit.
Aus den Akten ist immer besser als nicht.
Watch Reporters Plus on France 24 and France24.com. Long kept in silence. Restoring the Mau Mau's rebellion's place in Kenya's history.
Whatever our fathers did was never reported in the right way. So people ended up worshipping the ones who are not the owners of independence.
The rebel movement that fought hard against British colonizers is fighting not to be forgotten.
If these stories are not taken for the real Mau Maus, people are going to live with lies, perpetual lies, and the true story will never be known.
Kenya Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm sure Michael Small. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. TTPS officers call for investigation into Commissioner Hayward Christopher's handling of promotions. Prison officer charged with wounding with intent. St. Paul man arrested for gun ammo possession. And regionally, Jamaica health officials warns against harboring illegal immigrants. Now for the details. In the ongoing controversy surrounding the advancement of officers within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, 93 police officers represented by legal counsel have submitted a formal letter to the Police Service Commission requesting an investigation into Commissioner of Police Hayward Christopher. The officers are urging the Police Service Commission to scrutinize Commissioner Hayward Christopher's actions, particularly her alleged mishandling of promotions for more than 2,000 constables spanning as far back as 2009. According to the officers and their legal representatives, the Commissioner's handling of these promotions has raised concerns, prompting them to seek intervention from the independent oversight provided by the PSC. A prison officer appeared before Master Savita Casabon at the Port of Spain Magistrates Court yesterday after he was charged with wounding with intent. Edward Hogan, 44, of Cleaver Road, Arima, was granted bail in the sum of $350,000, and the matter was postponed to the 18th of April 2024. The accused was arrested and charged after police investigated a wounding incident which occurred on the 23rd of June 2023 at Citygate, Port of Spain. A man is currently assisting police with their investigation into a gun and ammunition discovery yesterday. On Saturday, around 9 p.m., officers of the Port of Spain Task Force conducted an exercise in St. Paul Street and environs. During the exercise, the officers had cause to arrest a male priority offender found in possession of a Glock 17 pistol with an automatic selector and 11 rounds of 9mm ammunition. The man is currently being processed at the Carnival Police Station. He is expected to appear before Port of Spain Magistrates Court early this week. Inquiries are ongoing. Regionally, the Chief Medical Officer for Portland's Jamaica Health Services is urging residents to discontinue harboring illegal immigrants from Haiti, warning that these individuals, who have been frequently arriving by boat, could be infected with communicable diseases. Dr. Sharon Lewis, who was addressing the monthly sitting of the Portland Municipal Corporation yesterday, made the call against the background of the undetected arrival of 3 groups of Haitians who landed in eastern Portland during the latter part of last year. Since October 2023, a number of Haitians evaded the police upon their arrival and were in hiding. A few have been found at a time by the police and were brought into the health team for processing, Lewis said. Well, that's news on the hour on WESN. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Well, it's this time to say Happy New Year in 2024. Hello, everybody. I'm Andy Johnson. This is 10 questions for this edition of how we kick off the series in this new year. In a commentary carried in a recent edition of The Express, Independent Senator Dr. Maria Dillon Remy said Tobago will finish the job in the campaign for internal self-government on the island. The comment was a tribute to the late former Chief Secretary Ho Choy Charles. She said, among other things, he wanted to see Tobago develop to its fullest capacity and that he was confident that the people of Tobago could and perhaps should lead this process. But, she said, this was now not a reality. Dr. Dillon Remy ended this commentary by saying that the greatest gift which the people of the sister island can give to the late Tobago nationalists is to relentlessly pursue internal self-government for the island. Dr. Dillon Remy is our guest on this edition of the program. Good to have you, ma'am.
Hi, good morning, Andy, good listeners and viewers, and Happy New Year to you also.
Thank you very much. So let's put it this way. The title of the caption, I saw where you said in the wake of his death, the PNM and the opposition are not in support of the essence of the bill. What might be, in your view, some of the elements of the bill that some people may be against?
Now, put it this way. Let me back up a little. This bill was sent initially in 2016 from the Tobago House of Assembly, then under the leadership of Mr. Orville London. But it was a bill that was crafted in conjunction with other persons like Mr. Ho Choy Charles and other persons within what they called at the time a forum of parties, to get what they considered appropriate for Tobago and to send that to the Parliament in Trinidad. Well, first to the Cabinet, and the Cabinet put it into Parliament. So there were some things in there that were already, let's say, compromised in the sense that as you would have talked about, there were some things that the PNM thinks, I'm okay with that, and some people that Mr. Charles or the PDP said we cannot accept that. One of those things I would say is, for instance, they had asked for in the bill that they have a separate service commission in Tobago. The bill, as it stands now, recommends that Tobago gets representation on the service commissions, but not a separate service commission. And there's a reason for that. They are saying if you have a separate service commission, what happens if somebody wants to move from Tobago to Trinidad or Trinidad to Tobago? Things like that. They also talked about a hard definition for Tobago in the Constitution, which says that Tobago is defined by the islands, the sea up to high water mark, plus the St. Giles Islands, etc., up until 11, a certain number of miles between Trinidad and Tobago. And that is put in the definition of the Constitution. The government did not agree to that, and that was because they said that that would affect how Trinidad and Tobago is seen internationally. You can't put a hard a definition of one country with one island being decided. So there were things like that. And there were other things too. But those were some of the things that I can remember. And when the bill went to the Joint Select Committee and then came back to Tobago, Tobago said, when I say Tobago, it came back to Trinidad and Tobago because people had an opportunity to discuss the elements of the bill. I remember when they came to Tobago in April of 2021, there were some people in Tobago saying, listen, I have no problem with the bill, and that was mainly the persons in the PNM. And there were people like Denise Sawyer-Fat-Angus, well, of course, Mr. Charles, and at the time, Fali Augustine, he was not the chief secretary at the time. They said there were things in the bill that they could not accept. What happened after that is that the bill came to Parliament in July of the same year. And when the bill came, there was a document that was sent by Mr. Charles and Mr. Augustine, which said these are the recommendations they would put on the table for amendments. And that is where it has stopped. So there'll be lots of people saying this and saying that and saying the other. But at the end of the day, the understanding is that one, the people in Tobago agree as to what they want. The people in Tobago know that they will not get everything that they want for different reasons. Having said that, we then have to, the two people in Tobago have to convince both the PNM, the opposition, and members of the independent bench that these are the things that they consider appropriate for both Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that's where the complexity lies.
Yeah, I remember that there was that major meeting at the Signal Hill School at some point late in the day, and I had gone to cover it because after different groups of people had sessions, it was said that session was supposed to have been, this is where Tobago was going to speak as one. But I think you said you didn't attend, but you got a sense of what came out of that.
Yes, I am aware of that, and that is what would have led to the crafting of the bill that would have gone to the Tobago House of Assembly for debate. And that is what was fed into what was sent to, so it was, Tobago said this is what they wanted. The Assembly got the legal minds and to write the bill. It went to the Assembly, it was debated. At the time, Mr. London was the only, it was only PNM, so it was unanimously passed. And then it was sent down to the Cabinet in 2016. And that is what we are still discussing. I even heard one of the persons who was involved then, Mr. Varnish James, saying that That bill is how many years old? It needs to be changed even now because it's too old. But that's another story. But what I'm saying is that it was what was the Signal Hill Accord was the basis for the bill that would have been sent to Trinidad.
Yeah. All right, so here's this question. If people in Tobago want what is on the table now, and the whole question of self-government, why might that be a problem for people in Trinidad?
I think many people in Trinidad don't understand the origin of this discussion. I remember speaking to someone, it was at Arthur Lockjack, we were having a discussion, and he was saying, but why Trinidad, why Tobago want to pull away from Trinidad? That is not in their interest. And I said to him, I don't think you understand. And so one is that they don't understand. They think Tobagonians are just making up stories. They just want to continue to be a part of a gimme gang from Tobago, coming and begging Trinidad for stuff, and then being ungrateful now by saying you want to pull away from the Twin Island Republic. I'm saying they don't understand. And as Andy would know, Tobago was not under Trinidad's jurisdiction until in 1898 or 1899.
1899, most people say, yeah.
Right, when they were annexed to Trinidad. And from that time, there were issues. And I still remember there's something that it was written at that time, which said that if Tobago did not agree, in other words, if Tobago found that the arrangement was not working out, they would have an opportunity to look at it again. It is the people of Tobago's view that when we were seeking independence from Britain, that they should have had a discussion at that point in time as to what happens to Tobago. Because Tobago is already, people like APT James, Fargo, and they were already saying that they were not comfortable with the arrangement between Trinidad and Tobago because Tobago was being left behind. So it's not something that's new. It was taken up by Mr. Robinson and the then DAC in 1977, when Mr. Robinson, who was then in opposition, brought the bill as a private member's motion. He brought a private member's motion, which is what caused the first THA Act and the reassembling of the Tobago legislature in 1980. So it is not anything new. And I think most people from Trinidad do not understand. They think Tobago is just wanting too much, or they think Tobago is just being spoiled. You know, they're saying, but you only have 5% of the population. Why do you want all that amount of money? Is what some people are realizing, that when things close between Trinidad and Tobago, because of the night where there's no flights, you can't get to Trinidad for something that may be considered important. So there are certain, I think, nuances that people don't understand. And Andy, I would say the other thing is that unfortunately, the internal self-government for Tobago has been politicized so much that I think people either take one side or the other, depending on which party they are a part of, and that has not really made things easier. I was looking again this morning. St. Kitts and Nevis only have 50-something thousand people, about 54,000 people. The island of Tobago is supposedly, they say it's about 60,000 people now. St. Kitts not only have their own legislature as St. Kitts and Nevis, but Nevis, an island of 11,000 people, make their own laws for Nevis. And these are some of the things that Tobago has been saying for a long time that they wanted. There are some people who say we want to come out from but there are few under the Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, let's separate. But those are few. The majority of people say we want to stay under the umbrella of Trinidad and Tobago, but we want to make We want to be able to, it's like being a grown-up in your house, but without, in other words, the house being Trinidad and Tobago, being grown up in your house so that you can make your own decisions and stuff like that while you are still apart. Because what you're doing, instead of pulling from, which is what people think Tobago does all the time, pulls from Trinidad and Tobago, instead of doing that, we will be a force to be reckoned with, bringing to the table things that we consider important and things that we can bring. Again, I would say, looking at St. Kitts and Nevis again, they have some 200 and something thousand visitors in a year. Tobago has what, 20,000, 25,000? At one point in time, they used to be near 100,000. They are down now. And stuff like that. They make their own decisions for their country.
Yeah, I can tell you that. I can tell you that I've been to St. Kitts and Nevis, beginning with when they got independence in 1983, and I've been back a couple of times. Yeah, I've been back a couple of times to cover elections, and the inter-island rivalry, I should say rivalry, as a matter of fact. Trinidad and Tobago is nothing compared with sentiments on both sides there, between Nevis and St. Kitts and so on.
Right, right. So I think when I look at it as a person who has benefited from being a part of the Twin Island Republic. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. However, I am firmly of the view that Tobago has not been allowed, so I agree that Tobago needs to have more autonomy than it has right now. For instance, I have been working in the health sector, both in Trinidad and Tobago, but when I came to the health sector in Tobago in 97, came back to the health sector in 97, and I had to deal with issues related to a secretary in Tobago saying that they wanted something in health, and a minister saying, or permanent secretary in Trinidad saying, no, you can't have that because of. I can't remember any specifics, but what I'm saying, because the Constitution now says that you are responsible for things under the 5th schedule, that's the Tobago House of Assembly, but it says something notwithstanding Section 75(1) of the Constitution, which gives the ministers overriding power for all the areas that Tobago is responsible for in Tobago. It means that you can make a decision in Tobago and have it removed, overridden by a minister in Trinidad, and that is not what is required. That is not what is expected. So that's some of the things that need to be changed.
And in your estimation, in your considered opinion, it should not be?
It should not be. No, it should not be. If Tobago has said, if Trinidad and Tobago has said, Tobago is responsible for these areas, they should be able to make the decisions for the areas and not just administrate what is said from Trinidad. Not just in other words, you're not just an administrator, which is what they are right now. Because but you can change things and say, okay, in Tobago, somebody was talking, for instance, about things like plastics, and Tobago, the push for ecotourism and stuff like that. If Tobago wants to say right now, we are banning plastics from the island of Tobago and we will be doing these things instead, they have no legal right to say that. But you think that that is something that we could say in Tobago? Because we are interested in Tobago, you're interested in protecting your environment and stuff like that. It's things like these that may be, that people, it may not be seen as important for people in Trinidad, but it is seen as important for people in Tobago in terms of Tobago's development. And they should be able to make the changes that are necessary in Tobago, including legislative changes. Yeah. And this is what I passionately want to see.
Yeah, and you know, this might be a pedestrian question, but given the fact that the Prime Minister of the country for another time is a Tobagonian, do you get the sense that there's any sort of attraction on the matter that is greater than it may have been otherwise?
Okay, so what I would say is that the Prime Minister has said that he wants to see autonomy in Tobago. And I would take his word for that. Where the difference comes is what the Prime Minister means by that, and what the people in Tobago, many of them have said they mean by that. And I would note that the Prime Minister has also said that there are PNM people in Tobago who are prepared to accept the bill as it is. So in other words, it's not that the whole of Tobago is rejecting the bill, but the voices that are loudest for Tobago have been the voices that have not accepted some of the things in the bill. So give the Prime Minister his due. He has said that he wants it. Some of the things that he has said and what Tobago has said are different. And this is why, Andy, my understanding of what has to happen in going forward now is that the Prime Minister has said he's bringing the bill back to he's bringing the bills back to the Parliament this year. I think if I were Mr. Augustine, I would skillfully negotiate. I would first. I know they have done some work in the things that they wanted. In other words, they went through the bills again. There was a team working with Mr. Charles and some other people in Tobago who would have gone through the bills again in Tobago over the last several months. And there's a document that they have now. My understanding of what should happen there is that should be discussed in Tobago with the leaders of the PNM in Tobago. Because let it be a position that comes from Tobago. Fight about it in Trinidad. You're not going to get anywhere. When that is done, and yes, you will have to say, okay, some of these things, let's put it as we would love to have it, but we are prepared to debate it. These things are not negotiable. So if they have something like that, and then they bring that to both the Prime Minister in Trinidad as the leader of the PNM, because whatever the Prime Minister says and accepts would be accepted in the House. They also have to negotiate with the opposition also, because the opposition, whatever the Prime Minister may say, the opposition may not accept it. And by the way, I have not heard the opposition say one thing about the bill in its entirety. The main thing they have talked about is the fact there was not enough consultation with the Tobago people. It was too rushed, and this is why they did not support the bill when it came to the Parliament in 2021.
That's the opposition in Parliament. On what basis are they speaking for the opposition, for the people of Tobago?
Because they represent Trinidad and Tobago, I would imagine, even though they don't have any seats in Tobago. But whoever wants to speak the truth about the matter, actually the facts about the matter, is that unless the opposition agrees, there will be no change in the Constitution, and we would not be able to get the constitutional changes that are recommended. So even though they may not have any seats in Tobago, they must agree to whatever is. When they vote, it has to be the voting for Trinidad and Tobago, specifically as it relates to Tobago self-government here.
And to the extent that you've committed to take the matter forward in the name of George Charles, how do you get people to coalesce around moving this thing to the goalpost and in fact behind the bars?
So in terms of my role as an independent senator, I have one vote. So I'm very clear on that. It cannot come to the Senate except it passes the House with the necessary majority. So all I can do now is seek to influence behind the scenes what may happen, because I don't have any other role. I'm not in this House of Assembly. I am not in the House. I cannot, and influencing. So I think my view would be that the Tobago House of Assembly putting a view that is out there, a view that is agreed upon, and then taking it, I think, to the Prime Minister and to the opposition leader discussion. Now, I'm saying that. I am not too sure whether they will want that. But I think that is what is happening. I'm seeing that that is the best way in which these changes that are required can happen. And let me just tell you why, Andy. In 1980, the PNM was in power at the time, and the DAC was in opposition. When that bill, for the Act of 1980, is it 37? I think it's
Act 37, yes.
Yeah, Act 37 of 1980. When that act was passed, there was much compromising that happened at that time, that they did not get what they wanted. And as a result, this is what happened as to why they wanted the changes again in 96. What happened in 96? The NER was in the People's Partnership,
yes.
was in power then.
Was in government.
And they was in government, and the PNM was in opposition. Again, they had to have them both agreeing, and they did not get the agreement of everyone in the parliament. They did not agree for the deeper changes that are being requested now. The changes that require the 3/4 majority in the House. That's what I'm talking about. If they don't get the opposition and the government agreeing to it, and then because even in the House, the People's Tobago only has 2 votes. The 2 votes can't bring anything to Tobago per se.
Yeah, it can't make a significant difference.
No, it can't. It can't make a difference. I think they need about 9. If the Prime Minister said that the PNM all the votes will go to the bill, and they need 9 UNC votes, but the UNC is not going to vote for it except they understand that it will, I don't know. Let me not say I can speak to why they would or would not vote for it. I cannot. But what is needed is that for the constitutional change to happen, they need the votes from the UNC in addition to the PNM. So it's a ticklish thing, and I think it's so unfortunate that it's going to come back so close to elections, because I've been saying this from the 2021. We don't want this bill coming again. Every time there's an election in Tobago and you have this kind of discussion, it does not bring Tobago what is required.
So you think it's
optimist.
You think it works at cross purposes to have the matter be discussed and debated in the context of an election, which we are almost up on.
In the context of an election, because people will be looking at who will win, who has a chance to win from this, or who has a chance to lose from this, and there's a win-loss position rather than a win-win position for Trinidad and Tobago. And because if the bill is passed, and let me say, Andy, I'm optimistic. So I'm going to say when. I've been saying this all along. When this bill is passed, both PNM and UNC can take credit for giving Tobago internal self-government.
Yeah.
PNM cannot take credit because it can't do it alone. UNC cannot take credit. But together they can. And this is what I would love people in Tobago and people in Trinidad to understand. Tobago cannot get self-government until in the parliament there's agreement of both the PNM and the UNC in this situation, or if it's in another situation, as it happened before, it had to be whoever was in government and whoever was in opposition. And then having said that now, you go to the Senate and you need a certain number of votes from independent senator for it to, because I think it's a 2/3 majority you need in the Senate. So it is a Tobago, it's a national thing rather than party thing. And unfortunately, when we get close to elections, people are only thinking who will win and who will lose, who 2 seats in Tobago that is needed to form a government. And if I vote for this, I may lose the seats if I don't vote for this, and stuff like that.
So the prerogative of the people in Tobago gets sort of shoved aside or pushed down and becomes part of the whole the balloon of politicking, generally speaking. That's what you're saying.
Yes, yes, it is.
But the headline on the piece was Tobago will finish the job. In this context, then, was that you speaking, or that's the headline writer?
I did say Tobago would finish the job, and I said that in the context of it is so important. You, Mr. Charles, would have made your contribution. You've been at this thing for 40+ years. It is something that Tobago people centric. Let me put it this way. I'm putting it in the way people who really care about Tobago, because people who really care about Tobago would like to see the internal self-government, and they would have to push it now. It's not Mr. Charles anymore. The people of Tobago will have to push it. There will probably be some leaders who may arise in this context. I don't know, but the people will push it, but it has to be a Tobago-centric thing. So when I said Tobago will take it forward, I mean is that with the determination that you had, and with now the skill that will be necessary, the skill in negotiations, etc., which is what is needed right now, Tobago will take it forward. So Andy, you could call it a prayer, you could call it faith, you could call it hope, anything like that.
Yeah, but you're confident that that is what there's going to be a movement in Tobago to move it forward.
It is what is necessary. It is what is necessary. Otherwise, my prediction is that we can forget this thing and wait for another 40 years before it happens. Because unless you have something like a landslide in Trinidad for any elections, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure that will be happening in any time soon. Tobago might as well just sit and wait for the next 40 years, which is not, I think, what they want.
All right, we'll have to take an adjournment on it. Thank you very much for talking with us, Dr. Maria Dillon Remy.
All right, thank you so much for having me, Andy. Okay.
This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokaram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Husband, of course, to Queen Elizabeth in Nairobi for the ceremony, and to hear new Prime Minister Jomo Kenyatta urge a continuation of what he called the special relationship that the country had had with Great Britain. Of course, in reality, British rule in Kenya had been far from easy. Throughout the 1950s, amid numerous disputes, the Kenyan Land and Freeman Army, better known as the Mau Mau, began a violent campaign against white settlers. Attacks were vicious, often at night, using basic weaponry like machetes. The British hit back, imposing a state of emergency. Numerous atrocities committed by both sides. Officially, 11,000 Mau Mau rebels were killed in the violence. Unofficially, well, figures much higher. The Kenya Human Rights Commission says 90,000 Kenyans died. Just 32 white settlers were killed. Well, the British still refuse to officially apologise for what happened, although King Charles, on a visit to Kenya ahead of the anniversary, did acknowledge the abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence, adding there was no excuse for what happened. Well, today, the Mau Mau are considered the heroes of independence in Kenya, but few remain anxious that their story will soon fade into oblivion. Well, for France 24, Bastien Renouy, Elodie Coussin and Olivia Bizot revisit Kenyan independence.
This hymn by the Kikuyu ethnic group pays tribute to Mukami Kimati, a Mau Mau fighter and the wife of fellow independence hero Dedan Kimati. This is Kenya's final farewell to one of their symbols of resistance. It's the first time that a veteran has been honoured with a national funeral. Until 2003, the movement was banned. But today, politicians are showing a growing interest.
With all the honours she deserves, we celebrate this heroine. She joins other heroes, the Mau Mau heroes, and all those who fought together against the colonists to free our country.
The Mau Mau fear that their history will be forgotten. After independence, the national narrative was shaped by those in power. Remaining in the shadows, members of the movement were condemned to poverty.
I'm very saddened because of such a state funeral. They have spent a lot of money, a lot of money. People from all walks of life are here. But when our grandmother was yelling, nobody went there. But right now, they are using this moment for their political mileage. It is very wrong.
Between 1952 and 1960, at least 11,000 fighters were killed. Those who survived were often forced to live on land far away from their pre-colonial homes. This farm in the Rift Valley belongs to the last surviving Mau Mau general and his family.
I bet at their time they still used to feel so much at home, having stayed in the forest for over 8 years and then ending up in another forested area, which now they are turning into a home, but not a fighting ground. So that feeling has been translated into generations and generations, and we always love this place. In the whole world, this is my point of peace. But to be honest, what should have happened is that they should have been allocated land where they were evacuated before the settlers came in.
Land grabbing is an unresolved issue in Kenya. After the British left, high-ranking Kenyans seized their land. For decades, the Mau Mau were labelled terrorists, making it difficult for them to claim victim status. So Wilson and his family and friends set up an organisation that provides emotional and practical support to veterans. Here, Wilson's father is hosting the group. The association collects the stories of remaining survivors. They pledged an oath of secrecy, so mystery still clouds much of the rebellion. But the general is opening up about detention camps.
We were beaten if we didn't kneel down. If we didn't address the settlers in the right way. No, we couldn't. Now that the war is over, we share our memories with those who are worthy when they come to us, but we're still hesitant.
It's a dark past, which many have had an interest in burying.
Whatever our fathers did never really was never reported in the right way. So people ended up worshipping the ones who are not the owners of independence. So we feel like we have a duty, especially as Mau children, to put this one right and be able to tell the world what happened.
Since the ban on the movement was lifted, Mau fighters have become known as independence heroes. However, government support for the group is still patchy. In the centre of Nairobi, few streets are named after them, and even fewer monuments have been built in their honour. This is due to a lack of political will, but also historical records. Only a small part of this National Archives Museum is devoted to the resistance movement.
There's a lot of stuff I didn't know. We weren't taught in school. When you come here, you see everything and you appreciate it. The way they've preserved them so that we can come see them, it's very important. We appreciate it.
One of the bloodiest chapters in Kenya's history has been reduced to this one wall.
It's important. Like a source of knowledge and information for the general public, great awareness. And, you know, patriotism, love for your country. There's so many benefits. Patriotism, love for the country, national identity.
Original copies of the archives can be found in this space, where national treasures are hidden away from the public. But very few documents from this period still exist. In this letter, a British communications officer warned that a photo of a gallows used to execute the Mau had been made public. The colonel's reply was unapologetic.
I only hope no one sees it out here, or I would be blushing with embarrassment.
When they left Kenya, the British tried to bury any proof of their colonial crimes.
These ones came from the former colonial government offices. They were actually left behind by the British, but also took so many of them. And those some were also disposed of through fire and burning. Quite a lot is actually found working in UK. Real information in terms of what was taken. The most sensitive ones are actually with them.
The British declared a state of emergency between 1952 and 1960. That's when the worst abuses were committed. These letters were written by prisoners in 1957, shortly after the Mau leader Dedan Kimathi died in prison.
You saw the dead, dead, detainees, arms broken, and head being slashed, severely bleeding, blood and brain from nostrils and from the mouth. Complaints like their treatment, they document, you know, some of those excesses by the authorities at that time.
In 2012, thousands of documents declassified by the UK detail the voluntary destruction of proof. The few historical sites that still exist haven't been preserved. Many Kikuyu heroes were born in this town of Gitunguri, a British target. This is where a labour camp used to be. George Gitau was detained here when he was just 22 years old.
When the state of emergency was declared in 1952, we lived in a place called Banned Forest. We were rounded up and sent here. We were given a place to sleep. This land was dug by hand, no machines. It was a landing strip for the settlers' helicopters. I bought equipment to protect the stadium. This football pitch has enabled me to preserve this land so that no one else can get their hands on it.
This steel is the only proof of the site's dark past. For decades, history was covered up, making it hard to know what to preserve. Professor Munene has been fighting to make the Mau movement better known, a struggle which has been made easier since a new generation of Kenyan politicians has come to power.
It's becoming respectable to be called Mau. There was a time in the 1980s and part of the 1990s when you got into trouble by being associated with Mau. And we have a few people like that. So what these people are doing is making Mau Mau respectable again. That does not mean that there will be rectification of the injustice. That one is not going to happen soon.
Many no longer expect financial compensation, but they do want their stories to be remembered. So a number of organizations are taking matters into their own hands. At this meeting, attendees discuss how they could set up a monument where a massacre took place.
Once we've finished the roof, we'll build some fences. Our project will be finished soon. We're going to call it the Githunguri Gallows Memorial Park.
That's where 54 Mau Mau were executed without trial. The monument would serve as a symbol of colonial injustices and a reminder of what fighters had to endure.
Because they found they have an opportunity, they are interested, so they'll start doing what they can to create that center, which is missing. Implementing it is a challenge. And it says that now the government has been amenable to the idea. The difference is maybe the others do not see the urgency the way these people see.
The monument is being built behind this gate. Professor Munene is visiting the site for the first time.
The gallows are right here. Those who were executed here on this spot where I'm standing fell here. If you didn't die, they'd finish you off with a hammer. That's why we're building the monument here. Those who were shot were then loaded onto a lorry in the early hours of the morning for everyone to see. The settlers showed us the bodies to scare us so that we didn't participate in the rebellion. Yes, for the simple reason that they were Mau Mau, terrorists.
Very few memorial sites like this one exist, despite the number of crimes committed during the state of emergency periods. The number of survivors still alive to tell their stories are dwindling. Brigadier Kiboko was a comrade in arms of the Mau Mau leader Dedan Kimati. Wilson's organization is paying him a visit.
You know, in those days in the forest, a bicycle could be used to make 4 rifles. Can you imagine making a gun out of a bicycle, shooting someone and killing them? Our memory is worth its weight in gold, but we don't explore it enough. We're going to die, and no one will know what we know.
In most of his 94 years, Kiboko has never stopped fighting for recognition. But he now wants to pass the torch on.
I need to tell you something. There are no sheep without a shepherd. You must guide the Mau Mau to where you think they should go. Seek wisdom from those who are still alive. They will help you.
Thank you.
Back at the farm, Wilson enjoys precious moments with his family. The Brigadier's words now carry more weight. He died a few days ago, along with his secrets.
If these stories are not taken from the real Mau Maus, people are going to live with lies, perpetual lies, and the true story will never be known. And there's a very big possibility that with age, the story of Mau Mau will be just a mention in a book here and there. One thing I can say is that for as long as we live, we have a duty. We are the custodians of the next generation. And it's us to keep the fire burning, to make sure that the Mau Mau story, it will never be forgotten.
His hope is that future generations will take up the baton. But for that to happen, they need to know about their past. The struggle for memory is not only important for Mau Mau descendants, but for Kenya as a whole.
Bastien Renouy, Elodie Coussin and Olivia Bizot, revisiting Kenyan independence for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Of course, you can catch it and all the previous editions as well on our website. That's at france24.com. More news coming up in just a moment. Thanks for watching.
For the last 30 years, some women have been trying to reconstruct files destroyed by the East German secret police. They are known as the Puzzle Women.
Und wir waren ja dann auch neugierig, was da drin stand, warum sie ausgerechnet das vernichtet haben. Da haben wir dann angefangen, auch immer mal so Schnipsel zusammenzusetzen und zu gucken.
Each scrap of paper hides a secret, a story, a life.
Ob man die Akten überhaupt aufmachen soll, weil man befürchtet hat, dass man Wunden aufreißt, dass es Streitigkeiten.
Aus den Akten ist immer besser als nicht.
Watch Reporters Plus on France 24 and France24.com.
Show about women consacré aux femmes.
The 51% is celebrating its 10th anniversary.
Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a new show about women who are...
For the past decade, we've been reporting on women who are reshaping our world. 4 dedicated hosts in English, French, Arabic and Spanish. A diversity of languages and offering a variety of perspectives as we hear from those pushing for gender equality. Covering a decade of struggle, perseverance and change. The only show of its type on a global newscaster. Find it here on France 24 and France24.com.
Nos vemos próximamente en France 24. À très bientôt sur France 24. Voilà, tahiyati. Bye for now.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. TTPS officers call for investigation into Commissioner Harewood Christopher's handling of promotions. Prison officer charged with wounding with intent. St. Paul man arrested for gun ammo possession. And regionally, Jamaica health officials warns against harboring illegal immigrants. Now for the details. In the ongoing controversy surrounding the advancement of officers within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, 93 police officers represented by legal counsel have submitted a formal letter to the Police Service Commission requesting an investigation into Commissioner of Police Ayla Ewa Christopher. The officers are urging the Police Service Commission to scrutinize Commissioner Ewa Christopher's actions, particularly her alleged mishandling of promotions for more than 2,000 constables spanning as far back as 2009. According to the officers and their legal representatives, the Commissioner's handling of these promotions has raised concerns, prompting them to seek intervention from the independent oversight provided by the PSC. A prison officer appeared before Master Savita Casabon at the Port of Spain Magistrates Court yesterday after he was charged with wounding with intent. Edward Hogan, 44, of Cleaver Road, Arima, was granted bail in the sum of $350,000 and the matter was postponed to the 18th of April 2024. The accused was arrested and charged after police investigated a wounding incident which occurred on the 23rd of June 2023 at Citygate, Port of Spain. A man is currently assisting police with their investigation into a gun and ammunition discovery yesterday. On Saturday, around 9 p.m., officers of the Port of Spain Task Force conducted an exercise in St. Paul Street and environs. During the exercise, the officers had cause to arrest a male priority offender found in possession of a Glock 17 pistol with an automatic selector and 11 rounds of 9mm ammunition. The man is currently being processed at the Carnival Police Station. He is expected to appear before Port of Spain Magistrates Court early this week. Inquiries are ongoing. Regionally, the Chief Medical Officer for Portland's Jamaica Health Services is urging residents to discontinue harboring illegal immigrants from Haiti, warning that these individuals, who have been frequently arriving by boat, could be infected with communicable diseases. Dr. Sharon Lewis, who was addressing the monthly sitting of the Portland Municipal Corporation yesterday, made the call against the background of the undetected arrival of 3 groups of Haitians who landed in eastern Portland during the latter part of last year. Since October 2023, a number of Haitians evaded the police upon their arrival and were in hiding. A few have been found at a time by the police and were brought into the health team for processing, Lewis said. Well, that's news on the hour on WESN. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
I'm your host, Sule A. Joseph, a counseling psychologist by profession. By now you know we're in season 4, and we have some really pertinent topics and conversations that we plan to have in this season. Some even controversial. And of course, this episode is one such controversial conversation. But before we get into that and introduce today's guests who will be rejoining me to have a conversation, first, my favorite segment, Psych to Know.
Psyched to Know, brought to you by Sule Joseph and Associates.
Forgiveness means different things to different people. But in general, it involves an intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger. The act that hurt or offended you might always be with you, but working on forgiveness can lessen that act's grip on you.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Sule E. Joseph. And as promised, we have a controversial conversation and topic to discuss today. Joining me today, this morning, is no stranger. It's Ayana Miguel, a mediator and conflict resolution specialist, joining me to have a conversation about forgiveness. Ayana, thanks for coming. And good morning.
Thank you, Sule. Thank you so much for having me once more.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. You're a popular guest here. It's always good to have. It's always good to have you back. All right. I know once we start having conversations, it's usually insightful and usually two varying perspectives. It's usually quite good.
Okay.
So
I'll try my best. High
standards we have to keep, right? forgiveness. When we're talking about forgiveness, what is that? Because I know sometimes when people think forgiveness, you know, the first thing comes to your mind is just letting go of everything, kind of. Is that what we mean when we say forgiveness? What is forgiveness?
Now, to be honest, forgiveness is a very broad topic, is a very broad area, even research, for want of a better term. When we say forgiveness, what sort of forgiveness? Are we talking about forgiving someone in preschool for taking your favorite snack or your favorite book, forgiving your first boyfriend or girlfriend for breaking your heart, forgiving your children for stressing you out, like I had to experience last night, or we're talking about forgiving? What kind of forgiveness we talking about, Suli? Let's define that first, and then I will be able to tell you. Because when I hear forgiveness, I think about the conflict of forgiveness. My mind automatically goes there.
All right. So, for the sake of simplicity, when we're speaking forgiveness, here we're speaking about relationship forgiveness.
Oh,
so,
Lord. Okay,
so forgiveness in a relationship setting. All right.
Yes.
I don't want to quote any specific videos just yet or any information just yet, but in a general sense of speaking, in a relationship setting, forgiveness. What are we talking about there?
Honestly, I would think forgiveness is very hard to define. And reason being, forgiveness actually takes two persons or two parties to really have a specific definition to the situation. So in relationships, when we talk about forgiveness, it goes hand in hand with some sort of conflict resolution, some sort of resolution, right? Something was done that forgiveness is needed by one party and the other party is required to forgive. Now, there is a whole conflict behind forgiveness because there is some blame that is attributed to the party that requires forgiveness. And the party that is required to forgive is now warring with, do I forgive too soon? Or do I let it pan out? Or what do I do in a general context? And that itself can be an issue because if you forgive too soon, it can damage your self-respect, right? And if you take too long, it can result in the development of negative feelings and you know, that bitterness, that anger and stuff like that. So, you know, forgiveness, yes, it plays a key role in conflict resolution, but the way that it is managed is also very important.
Okay, so for the sake of the layman at home, right? And yes, people at home are calling you a layman, but for the sake of the persons who are at home who are not in the field, right? Could we use a simple definition? Maybe something as saying that it's a intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger or any of those type of poisonous type of feelings. Could we use that as a definition for forgiveness? An intentional decision?
Yes, it's an intentional decision. But again, I am not a fan of the general school of thought that you must forgive. There are certain situations that...
Well, that's what we're going to get. I'm going to get into that, you know. I made a note. I write it down right here. I made a note because I feel like that one controversial. And I always like bringing it because I know you bring some different perspectives. This one going to have social media happen. All right. So you're saying that you don't always have to forgive. I think I wrote it down. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward. Explain that to us.
It depends on the situation, because if it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing? Right?
Okay.
Are you encouraging forgiveness? Because forgiveness is spoken about widely in the Bible, etc., and you must forgive.
Right.
But encouraging forgiveness, let's say too early, right? Before there is some sort of real understanding within yourself, with others, with the situation. What are you really doing to yourself? Right? And then the other party now. I mean, what are you really doing to them? They are being forgiven so easily. I'm not saying that person has to pay, but is the lesson really learned?
Well, I can speak to a situation in which I was aware, where two persons, of course, were in a relationship, a heterosexual relationship, and one of the persons stepped out, and the other party forgave so quickly. I mean, they were upset, of course, but within the same time of finding out, the same day and so on, you know, they were upset, they cried, and then the person forgave the other party. And the end result was, the person who was forgiven felt as though like this relationship not making sense because this person, how would you forgive so easily? You know what I mean? Like clearly there are issues that led to this, and you know, you're not working it out, and the relationship ended actually. So the
now, all I will say there is audacity. Honestly, you are being forgiven, and you now want to determine or indicate or state how it is you're supposed to be forgiven. You are being forgiven. Say thank you and move it along.
But you just said that it's supposed to. You just said that there's supposed to be an appropriate time frame in which, you know, forgiveness has to be earned and so on and that.
It's true, but again, it's within different situations. Now you're talking about stepping out. Stepping out is our culture. I'm not going to the front and say, oh dear, what happened to the person? Listen, that is our culture. Right? We are, at our age, you need to learn to manage it, and you need to know how to do it. But my issue is, that person chose, and I am being bold-faced and saying, she chose to say sorry very quickly, and he decided that she forgave too quickly. Right? Or he decided to forgive easily, and she decided that he forgave me too quickly. That is a person's choice. Some others would say, I'm not forgiving you. Some others will walk out. Some others will stay and make your life a living hell 10 years down the line if given the opportunity. But for you to indicate or direct or demand when somebody should forgive you, that is not making sense. And then we have it where we have a lot of voices around us and persons around us always telling us to forgive for our betterment. We forgive in our own time. And then there are some situations, like I said before, does not need forgiveness. It's just to walk away, let it go, sit down, put it in its box, and walk away. Simple.
But what about now, two questions I have for you. One is, you spoke about appropriateness in terms of timing and so on for forgiveness. So I would ask one, for the person at home, what is an appropriate time to forgive? So you know, for those people out there who just found their spouse holding them in the backseat of a maxi, right? When is an appropriate time to forgive? I mean, you just found your spouse cheating on you in the backseat of a maxi. It's all of social media and the rest of Trinidad is now aware of this. When is an appropriate time for forgiveness?
So it will be remiss of me to tell someone when is an appropriate time for them to forgive. It all depends on you. And the most important thing in getting to that state or that stage of forgiveness is your peace of mind, your peace of heart. Because anytime you're dealing with horn or anything like that, that's your heart we're talking about, right? And it messes with your mental. And if your mental is in disarray, I am not going to tell anyone in a state of disarray, in a state of anxiety, to rush into forgiveness. Encouraging forgiveness too early can be harmful to parties. And in this case, both parties, because the situation that you explained there, the person who was forgiven early decided to just end the relationship. So that is even more harm done to the person who was forgiven.
So then, you don't forgive too soon, don't forgive too late, else it'll be better. So where's the Goldilocks zone? How do you know when it's...
There is no Goldilocks zone in real life. That is why Goldilocks is a fairy tale. That is why the brothers Grimm and Hans Christian, they wrote those fairy tales. And I wish a day, I always say that I wish I could find the person who wrote these fairy tales. I could just give them a swift kick. Because you have persons growing up thinking, oh my God, once I be this way and that way, I'm going to find my prince and we're going to ride off on a white horse. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to have to deal with disputes. We're going to have to deal with disappointment. We're going to have high moments and we're going to have low moments and we're going to have the in-between. It is not perfect. Life is not perfect. Simple. And forgiveness and the art, and I would call it an art of forgiveness, is not perfect. Because you have people saying, I can forgive you, but I will never forget.
Which is actually the other point I wanted to get to. So for those of us who equate forgiveness with forgetting, because we have some people who hold on to things. So they may say that I have forgiven you, but you will never hear the end of it. Every time that argument comes up, the issue will be raised every time, you know what I mean? So, and it could be something very small, something as small as perhaps you didn't show up for an event, or you didn't come on time, as maybe you made a promise that you weren't able to keep. And so the person may say that they've forgiven you, and the relationship may continue, but you can't hear the end of that error. It's always coming up in conversation, it's always being brought up. Then can we call that forgiveness?
They will have to know. If they are telling you that, okay, I forgive you, but they keep on bringing it up, what we will say from a professional standpoint, there's still some residual anger or whatever in it. They have not really overcome the hurt, and that is why they keep bringing it up. But then there are others who will just bring it up because that is just the way that they are. So they will have to tell you. You see, what I'm trying to say is that we cannot tell persons, forgive now, forgive later, forgive in the middle, forgive when this is done, forgive when X is done. Honestly, and I can tell you from my personal experience on forgiveness, that's what I'm talking about here, is that you will wake up a day and realize, hey, you know what? I am more important. I can do bad all by myself. I need to be a better person, not only for myself, but maybe for my children, my family, or whatever. So let me put it in a box, wrap it up in a nice sweet bow, throw it away into the ocean. I'm done.
So then you're saying then forgiveness is a lot about self as well. So it's a lot about yourself.
It is.
And maintaining your own mental peace, your peace and your serenity.
Definitely. Your peace of mind and your peace of heart. People don't understand. When I say peace of heart, it's P-E-A-C-E of your heart. When you have peace within, it helps and it resonates. Because, and I'm sure you could actually see, a day you'll be angry with someone and you know you're wearing that on your sleeve, you're wearing that on your face, your looks, everything. And then a day you decide to say, you know what, I'm done, I'm good. You get up, you take a deep breath, fresh, you know, you have a freshness about you. Right? Like right now, I am peaceful because I am forgiven. I am not going to sit down and hold on to things. If somebody else wants to hold on to it for me, that's their business, but I am good. Move it along.
Now, there is the science behind actually being able to forgive certain situations that cause you stress and anxiety, and the increase in longevity of life, in terms of health as well, reduction in harmful body chemicals like serotonin, stress hormones, and so on, because of your ability to be able to forgive and move on from issues, as opposed to holding on to them. And what a lot of science would have shown us is that holding on to these things encourages things like sickness and stress and other major issues that can hamper your functioning, because of the inability to forgive and let go.
And you see, that's the thing. Like, my friends will actually tell me, I'm the cut-off queen. I will cut you off to the knees, and I am good. Brush off, and I go about my business. And maybe that's why people can't guess my age. They think I'm much younger than I really am. Because I try not to take things on. Oh my gosh, of course not. I try not to take things on. It doesn't mean that I have not been through really heart-rendering stuff or anything like that. But you have to know within yourself what is best for yourself. And you have to know if holding on to something is going to contaminate you internally, contaminate your outlook on life. And you okay with that, fine, so be it. But for me, I always want to ensure that I have a positive outlook on life. Despite whatever life has thrown at me, whatever persons have done to me, yes, I will have my down day or days. Yes, I will cry, bawl, scream, cuss, get on. But at the end of it all, I can look at myself in a mirror and I can smile and say, hey, this is who you are. And I am proud of who I am. And that is what I think persons will need to really get to that stage. You have to really be at one with self.
Well, it'll be remiss of me, as we're winding down and run out of time, there'll be remiss of me because there's a running joke at the studio here that says that, I was traumatized by dating red women, and, because of that, I have not forgiven and I haven't let go and moved on, right? And I perhaps need to open my heart and start dating red women again. No, that's me. Pardon?
That's you. No, I don't know if you want me to touch on that. Oh my.
No.
Right.
My question really for me was this. Does forgiveness, because someone can hurt you or do something to you, right? But does forgiveness mean that you don't learn a lesson? And now, this is not me saying a lesson learned here is red woman bad. I'm just making a joke and using an example. But does forgiveness mean that you return to a possible situation where you have been hurt or can be hurt again like that? Again, does it mean starting fresh, clearing the boat?
Forgiveness is a different lesson for different persons. Some people may return to a situation to learn, to really grow within the situation and then grow out of it. Some persons may walk away from the situation and never learn the lesson that was thrown at them. The main thing is to always see and understand the lesson that is being taught to you in situations where forgiveness is needed. So in your case and your particular choice on woman, you need to understand and learn the lesson that came out of that relationship or those relationships. And if there is something that you need to learn, you then apply that to other situations.
So I get what you're saying. Leave red woman alone. All right, good. So message received, loud and clear, message received. All right, good.
Not me and you and that.
Now, we have to. Now, thank you very much for your time. The other important lesson that I also learned from you as well today. I don't know if the rest of Trinidad also learned that lesson, but this is the lesson that I learned. Is that horn is part of Trinidad culture. Or you take all your horn and hush all your mouth, stop causing all them problems and so on, and forgive the person who gave you your horn. When you find your wife in the backseat of a maxi, let it go. Just forgive her and move it. Keep it moving.
I do not endorse that.
Oh, okay.
That is your words, not mine. Those are your words, not mine. Trinidad and Tobago, what I am saying here today is you forgive at your own speed.
Okay.
And find peace of mind and peace of heart, peace of self, one with self, and understand what your process is. Don't let anybody force you to forgive them. And don't hold on to anger and negative emotions because you think that is what they deserve. Study about what you deserve, and you deserve the best. Talk done.
All right, I like that. So we'll close with that instead. All right, that's a better lesson. Fine. We'll close with that, Trinidad and Tobago. You deserve the best. Study your peace and your happiness. Forgiveness is about you. Ayana, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thanks for coming in. I know the episode was going to be great. From the time you entered, I know the vibes. I know how it is. All right. So Trinidad and Tobago, thanks for staying tuned to us. Remember, same time, same place, right here on WESN. Till next week, please God, stay sight.
WESN.
I'm Andre Elbertis, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect
a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Alongside the United States, with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada and the Netherlands, we ordered the RAF to strike 2 Houthi military facilities in Yemen. I want to be clear that these were limited strikes. They were carefully targeted at launch sites for drones and ballistic missiles to degrade the Houthis' capacity to make further attacks on international shipping. I can tell the House today that our initial assessment is that all 13 planned targets were destroyed. At the drone and cruise missile base in Barney, 9 buildings were successfully hit. A further 3 buildings were hit at Abs Airfield, along with a cruise missile launcher caught in the open. We have seen no evidence thus far of civilian casualties, which we took great care to avoid. I know the whole House will join me in paying tribute to the incredible bravery and professionalism of all our servicemen and women. The need to maximise the security and effectiveness of the operation meant that it was not possible to bring this matter to the House in advance. But we took care to brief members before the strikes took place, including you, of course, Mr. Speaker, and the Leader of the Opposition, and I've come to the House at the earliest possible opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I do not take decisions on the use of force lightly. That's why I stress that this action was taken in self-defence. It was limited, not escalatory. It was a necessary and proportionate response to a direct threat to UK vessels and therefore to the UK itself. And Mr. Speaker, let me be absolutely clear why the Royal Navy is in the Red Sea. They are there as part of Operation Prosperity Guardian, protecting freedom of navigation as a fundamental tenet of international law. The Houthis' attack on international shipping have put innocent lives at risk. They have held 1 crew hostage for almost 2 months, and they are causing growing economic disruption. Global commerce cannot operate under such conditions. Containers and tankers are having to take a 5,000-mile detour around the Cape of Good Hope. That pushes up prices and imperils the passage of goods, foods and medicines that the British people and others rely on. We have attempted to resolve this through diplomacy. After numerous international calls for the attacks to stop, a coalition of countries gave the Houthis a clear and unambiguous warning 2 weeks ago. Last week, the UN Security Council passed a resolution condemning the attacks and highlighting the right of nations to defend their vessels and preserve freedom of navigation. Yet, the Houthis continued on their reckless path. Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't fall for their malign narrative that this is about Israel and Gaza. They target ships from around the world. We continue to work towards a sustainable ceasefire in Gaza and to get more aid to civilians. We also continue to support a negotiated settlement in Yemen's civil war. But I want to be very clear that this action is completely unrelated to those issues. It is a direct response to the Houthis' attacks on international shipping. And we should also recognise the risks of inaction. It would weaken international security and the rule of law, further damage freedom of navigation in the global economy, and send a dangerous message that British vessels and British interests are fair game. And there is another point here which is often overlooked. The Houthis' attack risks worsening the dire humanitarian situation in Yemen itself. The UK helps to feed around 100,000 Yemenis every month, with aid arriving via the very sea routes that the Houthis have in their sights. So, Mr. Speaker, the threats to shipping must cease. Illegally detained vessels and crews must be released, and we remain prepared to back our words with actions. But, Mr. Speaker, dealing with this threat does not detract from our other international commitments. Rather, it strengthens our determination to uphold fundamental UN principles. If our adversaries think that they can distract us from helping Ukraine by threatening international security elsewhere, they could not be more wrong. On Friday, I travelled to Kyiv to meet President Zelensky and address the Ukrainian Parliament. I took a message from this House to the Rada that we will stand with Ukraine today, tomorrow, and for as long as it takes. If Putin wins in Ukraine, he won't stop there, and other malign actors will be emboldened. That's why Ukraine's security is our security. That's why the UK will stay the course. And it's why I'm confident that our partners share our resolve. And so, far from our resolve faltering, our military support to Ukraine will increase this year. We will provide the single biggest package of defence aid to Ukraine since the war began, worth £2.5 billion. This will include more air defence equipment, more anti-tank weapons, more long-range missiles, thousands more rounds of ammunition and artillery shells, training for thousands more Ukrainian servicemen and women, and the single largest package of advanced drones given to Ukraine by any nation. All of this is on top of what we have already provided to support Ukraine. In total, since the war began, the United Kingdom will have provided almost £12 billion of aid to Ukraine. We were the first to train Ukrainian troops, first in Europe to provide lethal weapons, first to commit main battle tanks, first to provide long-range missiles, and now we are the first to keep the promise made at the last year's NATO summit, alongside 30 other countries, to provide new bilateral security commitments. Mr. Speaker, Ukraine's rightful place is in NATO, and NATO will be stronger with Ukraine in it. But these commitments will help bridge the gap until that day comes. Under the new agreement that we signed with President Zelensky, we are building Ukraine's military capabilities, and if Russia ever invades Ukraine again, we will provide swift and sustained assistance, including modern equipment across land, air and sea. Together with our allies, the UK will be there from the first moment until the last. For all of this, Mr. Speaker, I bring a message of thanks from President Zelensky to the British people. And today I hope that this House will join me in sending a message back to the Ukrainian people that we stand together as one in support of these firm commitments. We are building a new partnership with Ukraine, designed to last 100 years or more. Yes, it's about defence and security, but it's also about trade, investment, culture and more. And there could be no more powerful sign of our unique bond than Ukraine's decision to adopt English as the language of business and diplomacy. And so through the British Council, we're going to fund English language training for the Ukrainian people. Yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, in dangerous times, we are investing in defence, hardening our critical infrastructure, building our alliances, and we are resolute in our principles. International security, the rule of law, and freedom to determine your own future. An attack on those principles is an attack on everything that we believe in and on which our lives and livelihoods depend. As the home of parliamentary democracy and a leader in collective security, it is our responsibility to defend those principles and to defend our people. That is who we are. That is what Britain does and will always do. And I commend this statement to the House.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Prime Minister for the secure briefing last week and for advance copy of his statement. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate that Labour backs this targeted action to reinforce maritime security in the Red Sea. We strongly condemn the Houthi attacks that are targeting commercial ships of all nationalities, putting civilians and military personnel in serious danger, including British forces. The Houthi attacks are unacceptable, illegal, and, if left unaddressed, could lead to a devastating rise in the cost of essential food in some of the poorest countries. And, Mr. Speaker, the international community clearly stands against the Houthi attacks. Alongside the UK and the US, 4 other countries were involved in non-operational support. Over a dozen nations are part of the Maritime Protection Force in the Red Sea, and many others support the recent UN Security Council resolution, which condemns the Houthi attacks in the strongest possible terms. The UK strikes were limited, targeted, and did everything possible to protect civilian lives. That is a proportionate response. Mr. Speaker, military action must, of course, always be underpinned by a clear strategy, and it's the role of this House to ask the right questions. So I ask the Prime Minister, what confidence does he have that his stated objectives have been met? What process will he follow in the face of continued Houthi attacks? What efforts are underway to maintain the support of the international community? And can he confirm that he stands by the Parliamentary Convention that, where possible, military interventions by the UK government, particularly if they're part of a sustained campaign, should be brought before this House? Scrutiny is not the enemy of strategy. Because while we back the action taken last week, these strikes still do bring risk. We must avoid escalation across the Middle East. So can the Prime Minister also tell us how the UK will work with international partners so that our rightful actions are not used as an excuse by those who seek to expand violence throughout the wider region, or indeed reanimate the conflict in Yemen itself? Nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, our armed forces across the region are showing the highest professionalism and bravery, both in defending commercial shipping and this targeted action. We thank them, we are proud of them. They continue to show that Britain is a force for good. As does, Mr. Speaker, the UK's unwavering unity in support of Ukraine and against Russian aggression. On these benches, we have backed all military support. So again, we back the Prime Minister's announcement of £2.5 billion for Ukraine next year. And we strongly support the agreement on security cooperation. This will give Ukraine vital confidence to plan for the year ahead. I hope it becomes a template for other allies to follow, and that Ukraine, in time, will become a full member of NATO. Because, Mr. Speaker, to those listening in Kyiv, Moscow or elsewhere in the world, let me be clear. Whoever is in government in Britain The UK will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. Returning to the Middle East, it is now over 100 days since the brutal events of October the 7th. Israel's right to self-defence is fundamental, as is its duty to comply with international law. And the longer this conflict in Gaza rages, the more the risk of escalation throughout the entire region. On the Israel-Lebanon border, we must urge constraint. We must make it crystal clear to all parties that the UK does not support this conflict extending further in Lebanon. While within Israel and Palestine, in the West Bank, settler violence must stop immediately. And in Gaza, we need a humanitarian truce now, not as a short pause, but as the first step on a road away from violence. The need for a sustainable ceasefire is clear: to stop the killing of innocent civilians, to create the space for the return of all the hostages, and to provide urgent humanitarian relief, to protect against disease and ward off a devastating famine. Mr. Speaker, from that first step, we can begin a bigger push towards peace, a permanent end to the fighting, and a lasting political solution. The hope of the two-state solution is fragile, but it is still there, and we must fight for it, just as we must also remain resolute in the face of aggression which threatens global security, whether that's in Europe or the Red Sea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister. Can I thank the right honourable gentleman for his support of the action that we've taken? And I think he's absolutely right to highlight the international coalition that over recent weeks has called out the Houthis' behaviour, culminating in the UN Security Council resolution strongly condemning the attacks, which he rightly referenced. Our stated aim was to degrade and disrupt the Houthis' capability to launch attacks like this on civilian shipping. As I indicated, our initial assessment that those strikes that we conducted have been successful in the specific targets that were selected. And more generally, what we want to see is a reduction of tensions in the region and a restoration of stability. That is our stated aim. It's incumbent on the Houthis not to escalate this and continue with what are illegal and unprovoked attacks on civilian shipping, putting innocent lives at risk and damaging the global economy and the prices that British citizens and others will pay for their everyday goods, as the right honourable gentleman rightly pointed out. I can assure him that it was necessary to strike at speed, as he acknowledged, to protect the security of these operations. That is in accordance with the Convention, and I remain committed to that Convention and would always look to follow appropriate processes and procedures, and also act in line with precedent, where he will know there have been strikes in 2015 and 18 where a similar process as to this was followed. And I can also provide him with the assurance, as he rightly asked, about our international engagement, because there will be malign forces out there that seek to distort our action, to turn it into something that it is not, and it is important that we engage with our allies and those others in the region so they understand what we did and why. And I can provide him with the assurance that we have done that, will continue to do that, because it is important that there is no linkage between these actions and anything else that is happening. This is purely and simply to respond in self-defence to illegal attacks by the Houthis on commercial shipping. And I also welcome his support for the announcements we made with regard to Ukraine. He is again right to point out the importance of the security commitments that we have signed. 30 countries at the Vilnius summit promised to do so, and again this House should be proud that it's again the United Kingdom leading by being the first country to sign such a commitment, and which I now believe.
All right, you've been listening there to the UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and the Leader of the Opposition as well, Keir Starmer, speaking about a number of foreign policy issues, including Ukraine and the British strikes on Yemen. Sunak there saying the strikes were a success over the weekend, but Douglas Herbert, who is listening to that with me, it remains unclear from what Sunak had to say there whether the UK intends to carry out more strikes, given we understand the Houthis just today are still targeting ships in the Red Sea.
And signally, he didn't really address the latest news, what you just mentioned, that a U.S.-owned owned and operated ship was struck by a missile. This was a cargo ship about 155 miles southeast of Aden, where the internationally recognized government of Yemen is based. So right below the Gulf of Aden, right below the Red Sea. He didn't mention that. This was more a prepared statement in which he was going to basically reiterate the point that this was these strikes carried out by the U.S. and the U.K. Last Friday were not escalatory in nature. They were proportionate, as he would say. They were a matter of, in the UK's case, self-defense in order to directly protect the interest of UK commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Remember, the Red Sea is one of the world's most busy commercial ports, carrying about 12% of the world's cargo oil traffic. So it's extremely important. If there's a bottleneck there, as has been created by this conflict, by the Houthi attacks since mid-November on these commercial ships, who have had to divert off and around the Cape of Good Hope, southern Africa, at great cost and extra journey travel times. That is going to be something, he said, that the UK really is absolutely duty-bound to respond to. What's also interesting here is while this was addressing Parliament on the issue of the UK and the US and these strikes against the Houthis in Yemen, he also spent a lot of time devoting to his recent visit to Ukraine and the fact that Britain is going to remain foursquare behind Ukraine in the coming year. Far from faltering, he said, UK support is going to be maintained and even strengthened. He talked about the package of £5.2 billion, which will presumably be forthcoming from Britain to Ukraine, and trying to sort of tie these two sort of very different geopolitical operations, if you will, together. The participation with the U.S. In a coalition striking out against Houthis that are endangering, as they see it, Red Sea shipping, and upholding, as they see it, Ukraine's ability to defend itself in the face of a Russian aggression. So saying basically this is a matter of upholding international law. This is a matter of upholding the fundamental principles of the UN Charter. So he's tying them together and trying to make a broader case for when interests and international rules and international law and order are at risk. The UK, in a sense, is duty-bound to act. And I will just point out the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, as you heard, very much was rock solid behind the leader of the opposition, a man he does not agree with too often.
Douglas Herbert, thank you very much indeed for your analysis then on what Rishi Sunak had to say, particularly about those British strikes in Yemen that we saw over the weekend. We're going to take a quick break now in the studio, but do stay with us. More world news, more analysis on that speech coming up in a couple of minutes. Bye for now.
Special event.
Welcome to snowy Davos, where thousands of political, business and civil society leaders are gathering for the 54th edition of the World Economic Forum against a turbulent geopolitical backdrop. This year's theme, Rebuilding Trust in the face of wars, climate disasters and the rapid rise of artificial intelligence. French President Emmanuel Macron, China's number 2, Li Qian, and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres are among this year's keynote speakers. I'll be reporting here all week, so join us on France 24.
Watch events unfold on France 24 and France24.com.
就是在他成年与不成年这样的一个年龄段的走到，可能这是一个世上可能是最痛的一个失去亲人的一种痛吧。哎，这个东西你说怎么走出来？我想这种事这一辈子也走不出来。从真正的内心来说，肯定是走不出来。
我知道你的生命中永远有一处空旷的让人心碎，但是生活仍在继续。选择勇敢，选择感恩，选择正向，这会让我们的生命因有所失去而更加美好。这是我在天上最想要看到的景象。
我要尽量把我的整个面部区间都把它就是录进去，这样你可以把它的样本就是最核心的部分切出来。从这个数字永生这个概念出发的话，我们现在也在做这个事情啊，就是说我们去把整个它的数字能放到我们身边。为什么我会有